OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, we've got a great show lined up for you today. We have a bit of a Limerick special. Both Gillane and Nickie Quaid are going to join us. We are also going to hear from Mike Casey a little bit later on. We have Martin Lipton because the football season is back. Is everybody familiar with the fact that the Community Shield, Community Chest, Charity Shield, what's it called?
One of those three things is
It's on this weekend.
It is on Saturday, I think, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Colin is here.
Saturday evening, yeah, 5:30.
Owen is here.
How are you?
Colin, so happy with the love that his hipster football top got yesterday. He's wearing the second bit of his.
Oh yeah,
hipster
nice.
Oh
football
yeah, you
top.
caught it. Yeah, this is the polo shirt version. Maybe the second or third most recent version for Satellite Taxis FC for the polo shirt. We've changed the colour, made it darker. It was actually the same colour before as the top with a little white strimming, but now we've gone dark navy with blue.
The game is gone, as they would say on the evening show.
What are Satellite Taxis FC? They're a Cork club, are they?
Cork Club, founded by Paul Callanan, owner of Satellite Taxis FC in 2013. We were sitting around thinking, wouldn't it be great if all us friends could join a club? So it was like, well, why don't we start our own club? And by we, I mean Paul did that. Paul started the club. I was in Australia at the time and came home to join Satellite Taxis FC. I was only playing for 6 months,
You're a big
but
signing.
actually got a job as club ambassador since.
And why did you join Satellite Taxis FC as opposed to Free Now FC?
Well, they're the enemy.
Yeah,
So
very
that's
true.
like United joining City, Liverpool joining Everton, Celtic Rangers, Galatasaray, Fenerbahce. You can't do that. It's barely even a joke in Cork. So like, if you're going to play for a satellite or a taxi-based football team in Cork, it's Satellite Taxis all day. So that's what. And look, I agreed with the style of play, the philosophy, what they were trying to do, the keep ball. So, look, it was a really great football experience, and we just, we had a great time. It was a lot of success.
It seems like the design of the jersey and the gear was more important than the football. Is that a fair?
No, look, there was just the philosophy of play that I suppose incorporated into fashion. Yeah, 100%.
There's a hierarchy
yeah.
here.
You looked
though.
at
But there was a combination. Look, not everybody was a footballer. There was like grafters in there. Everybody had a bit of something, and everybody's bringing it to the table. And I suppose they delivered, consistently, just trophy after trophy, many appearances at Turner's Cross. Now, I wasn't personally there for those, but the club has been very successful.
Is this not everything that's wrong with football? Instead of like joining your local club and improving it, you decide, oh no, we're going to like set up a rival, withdraw some of the resources from the locality. It's the fractured nature
It is a
of
local
football
club
in Ireland.
It was all local people.
Yeah, but
coming together. This is a joyous thing.
aren't there other local clubs that you could have joined to strengthen as opposed
No.
to setting up rivals?
We were ostracised by the local clubs. So we were sitting there one night, right, socialising, thinking, wouldn't it be great if we could set up our own football team?
Did they just not pick you?
And what
Yeah.
happened?
But what did you do to be ostracised? I mean, in fairness now.
Politics, for them there, and we all were. So we were like, look, we can't let our collective talent go to waste. We're going to waste our prime years with these clubs, all the politics of these clubs. So let's set up our own club. Set up the club. Within 2 years, final in Turner's Cross.
There you go. Look at you now.
Look at the Wikipedia. Are you bored? Are you googling what to do?
I'm trying
with
to
this
get
team?
on. I'm trying to get on the internet here because
All right. I thought you were looking up facts about it because I could just tell you. It's fine. We should get them on, shouldn't we?
No.
The owner.
They're currently third in the Cork Business League, behind UCC United and Doolin's Cow Bar.
Yeah, Duggan's a good team. Yeah. We should get
They're
Paul
like
Callan, Ray
20
Hallisey on.
They're 23 points behind at the moment.
Actually, Ray Hallisey, he used to make up songs about our show and send them in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay,
so that's
okay,
that guy.
okay, okay,
and you've heard a bit of his work.
I have.
So-
It's excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a bit of context there.
Yeah. Okay. Just taking a picture of the Wi-Fi not working to send to support. You guys chat amongst yourselves, all right?
We've been doing that quite successfully for
we-
the last 4 minutes.
This has happened to you for a few days, just you though.
I think the audience will be the judge of just how successful those opening 4 minutes
they've
of the
really
show
enjoyed it.
were.
They've-
You can leave a comment in the YouTube stream if you'd like more of Satellite Taxis FCFM.
Well, I
this
did
morning.
suggest what we could talk about at the top, but you were quite happy to do satellite,
There you go.
which I'm quite happy to do too. Keep
Well,
going.
Owen, the football season is back. We're talking to Martin Lipton a little bit later on. We're going to talk to John Duggan about his hopes for Spurs. Your hopes for Arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
They come and go in wave motion.
They do. Yeah, the Premier League season is back, of course. I mean, football season has been raging through the summer.
Sorry.
Arsenal Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, this is like what's going to happen here is that you're just going to lull me into like a false sense of security here, where I'm going to like say that they're going to win the Premier League or something like that. Because was it you calling me yesterday that was talking about Manchester United's very encouraging pre-season campaign?
Yeah,
Arsenal have suffered a similar fate. And,
4-0 against Chelsea.
I would and winning the Florida Cup in the process. So one trophy on the board already. I'm
a bit get a bit worried about pre-season ever since David Moyes' seriously successful 2013 pre-season.
I don't remember how successful it was. It was
well,
not.
It wasn't so much the results. He was developing players. Like, I mean, subsequently it's emerged they had problems when they were on that tour in Australia about taking the players to a too public an area in Sydney, I think, and they were mobbed, and he wasn't.
The poor players.
He wasn't aware of the
They've
fact that
signed
this
some
could happen
photographs.
because he was used to taking Everton away.
I think that's
where
all
these Manchester
nonsense.
United players get mobbed. But I remember it being encouraging, and he was developing a lot of good young players. Jesse Lingard, who was young at the time, because he's always described as a young, promising player.
Yeah.
And he was bringing players through. And of course, David Moyes, in his first game, won the Community Shield, which is happening this weekend. And his first game of that season, I think they won like 4-0 away to, I want to say, Swansea. It's a very encouraging start, you know? So I just don't get too excited this time of year.
Yeah.
And how are you feeling with signing two players that Manchester City were happy to disregard? And Gabriel Jesus and Alexander Zinchenko.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons why they were happy to disregard one of them is because they've signed the greatest number 9 of his generation.
He's not going to play every game, though, and Jesus is a good player to have up front.
Jesus wanted to play a lot more, and even in the current Manchester City setup, he wasn't going to play every game, and now he's one further person out of the pecking order, so I can see why he leaves. I wouldn't be painting it as somebody that... Well, no, it is true. Manchester City were happy to disregard them, but there's nothing wrong with that, given that Arsenal are a team who are trying to chase top 4 and don't have a title challenge within their grasp just yet. I think both fulfil a pretty good function for Arsenal, where they go into this transfer window and their big news was signing Eddie Nketiah to a new deal. I mean, I don't think there's any argument that Gabriel Jesus is an upgrade, and a significant one at that, on Eddie Nketiah. And then the other question, and one of the things that we talked about quite a lot at the end of last season, was just the frustrations around Kieran Tierney. Regardless of all his quality, I thought it wouldn't have been the most outlandish thing in the world if Arsenal had looked to move him on at some point. That would have been extremely harsh and probably a knee-jerk reaction. But they needed cover at left back because Tavares just was not good enough whenever he played. He had a couple of good moments late on in the season, but just not consistent enough. So Alexander Zinchenko, I think, is a bloody good replacement for Tavares if he's not going to be involved with the Arsenal team all this season.
I think Zinchenko's a good signing. Fair enough. Gabriel Jesus, I sent you this the day the signing happened. Gabriel Jesus has scored 58 goals from 76.68 XG in the Premier League, an underperformance of 18.68.
Really?
Yeah.
Apparently, Arteta really likes his ability to cut back from the wing to set up other players, that he's actually a very selfless forward. And that's what Arteta likes about him.
But I think, again, if we're talking about improvements, and what you're basing Jesus off is not necessarily Nketiah, you're basing him off Alexandre Lacazette. And I think even that XG that you paint there is encouraging in the shadow of Alex. I don't know what the exact XG are, but the problem with Lacazette was that I thought he was always a brilliant link man, and he was great without the ball, a good presser. But I guess maybe because of his age or whatever it was, he just didn't have a finishing ability. Maybe he was just too tired every time it actually came to doing the basic job of putting the ball in the back of the net. Jesus has shown already in pre-season that that's not going to be a problem. I think it's 4 goals in 4 games. I think that's he's able to do everything that Lacazette did, dropping deep, allowing the likes of Martinelli and Saka to get on the ball.
We're not
Odegaard
counting
to get on the
pre-season
ball.
goals.
We're not, but I'm just like, I mean, I'm not saying that's the XG fact disproven. I'm just pointing to the things that would give you hope that the XG thing can be disproven. And I think he's done all the things that Lacazette did very, very well, and he's done it to the same level. And then he's also looked like a better goal scorer, or certainly has more of a goal threat. So I'm very, very excited about these two signings. I'm very excited about the Fabio Vieira signing. He hasn't played yet in pre-season. He's been injured, so that's he's fit right in at Arsenal straight away. He's got injured immediately as soon as he showed up to the club. So I would like to have seen a bit of him. But like, Arsenal have depth, and that was their problem last season. They couldn't compete even on one front because they didn't have enough players. Ger's about to walk out of the studio with his laptop. And
you need the internet.
we just go back to satellite taxis for a sec.
Cool. Look who's there.
I'm allowing myself to get like semi-excited as Ger kind of like wanders around the studio.
Not to put you on the spot too much, but do you have a starting 11 in mind if everyone's fully fit for Arsenal next season with the new signings incorporated?
At the start of in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, we'll say you're having
let's just assume Tierney's out. Let's assume Vieira is out. Let's go with Ramsdale in goal. But I think what we've got at the moment is Tomiyasu's also injured. So I think Ben White's going to start at right back, and Apparently he's looked quite good there. And you'll have William Saliba and Gabriel as your two centre-backs. Saliba, of course, is
back.
A guy who Arsenal put on loan 3 times. He's been spoken about, in the same era as Mesut Ozil and Aubameyang, as a player that Arteta, put the foot down with and shunned to the sidelines. It turned out that was all a load of rubbish, that actually Arteta did believe that putting him out on loan was what he needed. And he's looked impressive. He's played, I think, 3 games in pre-season, and he's looked impressive. So
Pre-season All-Stars.
Again,
it's all Arsenal all the time.
You can go by
Arsenal all the time. So that's 3/4 of the back four. And then Zinchenko is your left back. You probably start the season with your 2 from last season, which is Partey and Xhaka. Then it's Odegaard, Martinelli, Saka and Gabriel Jesus. It's not a bad team.
Not bad. What happens when Tierney's fit? Who plays left back, do you think?
I'd be interested to see would they try Zinchenko in midfield.
Yeah, they start him
back.
still. Yeah.
And maybe put him in ahead of. I'm not like Xhaka has been very, very good at times over the last 8 months or whenever the turn of the year was. But obviously there was I think Arsenal showed their Achilles heel, particularly that night against Tottenham, and that was holding wasn't fantastic that night. I know Xhaka kind of looked weak at times when the Arsenal were really under pressure in those last 10 days of the season. So maybe Zinchenko and Partey is something that you try out there. Lokonga's played in pre-season, and then you've got Vieira to come back into it. So you're talking about players who can make a difference from the bench this season. That's going to be important because of Thursday nights.
Who's the captain?
The club captain, who is the club captain of Arsenal?
Is it going to be Odegaard they're talking about?
Odegaard is stepping into.
That's right.
Has that been confirmed?
It has been confirmed, but he was speaking about it over the last week, and he's up for it by the sounds of it.
It was Lacazette, was the club
that's
captain.
Right,
I mean, okay.
Yeah.
Slightly.
Just give it back to Xhaka again.
Slightly mercurial, occasionally brilliant, occasionally flaky forward.
I think that would be fair comment of him at the start of last season. I think that he was excellent last year, and I think that was proven by the fact that I know he had his fitness worries, but I do think he doesn't start every single game the way he did if Smith Rowe was on the bench. Like, Smith Rowe couldn't get into that team and Martinelli's in front of him, and at times it was vice versa where Martinelli was starting ahead of Smith Rowe. I think Odegaard proved himself last season to be less flaky than everybody thought.
Would you not just let him develop as a player, as an individual, as opposed to now you are the leader of this team? Like, the captain of Arsenal
give it
is
to,
actually something very important.
It's been important in a bad way for so long.
Exactly, but within the club it has this kind of weird power where it emboldens certain people, and then others it has completely emasculated. So
maybe you give it to someone like Ramsdale or Ben White, and I don't know, maybe just because they play at the back of the pitch, they seem like more captaincy material. But you got to remember that Arsenal just have a very young squad. Like Edu was saying the other day that, like, if you're over the age of 26, Edu hates you, basically. If you're listening to this morning and you are born after 1995, Edu hates your guts unless you're really, really good at football. Like, he's kind of like spoken about their 5-year plan and how everybody over the age of 26, if they weren't performing well, it was just a millstone around the neck of the club. He also did say actually that when they were coming up with the 5-year plan, when they were appointing Arteta, they went to the board and they were like 2022-23. That's the season we get good. That's this season.
Right, okay. So
they had to qualify for the Champions League this season. They've put that on record, and they've not shied away from it. And you know what? Why not? Why not just lean into it all? I'll be here at the end of the season, no doubt, after another demoralising, last gasp bottle job on the Champions League, where Chelsea will probably nip into 4th or Manchester United will, and I'll be devastated again. But look, why not just get excited?
You're predicting Champions League football.
I definitely think Tottenham are going to qualify for the Champions League, and the top 2 will stay the top 2, I reckon. Then it's a 3-horse race for that 4th spot. The Ten Hag love is
it's so hard to know. Very exciting.
It could well be Arsenal versus United for 4th as opposed to Chelsea.
Who did you say for 3rd? Oh, Chelsea.
It's Spurs. Spurs.
Oh,
for
really?
3rd.
You think Spurs?
Yeah, definitely.
And
not
Liverpool?
definitely, but that's
City to win the
definitely
league
my
again.
prediction. City, Liverpool. I don't know who will win it. I haven't thought about my predictions yet. City, Liverpool top 2, Spurs 3rd.
I think Liverpool might slip a bit. I don't think they've strengthened adequately.
Well, Núñez is going to be the big answer to that question.
Yeah,
and
overall though,
the Andy Farrell looking like trolls online will be feasting if he doesn't score on his first couple of games of the season. So
I have 2 questions. Number 1, which is the only club in the Premier League this season not to have got a new jersey?
Villa.
No.
Arsenal.
No.
Man United. No. Liverpool.
No. Every team has a brand new jersey except
Tottenham.
Okay, this is very boring radio now. This is right out there with satellite taxis.
Brentford, right? Because they're all about sustainability.
Okay.
They're conscious of the cost of on fans, so they're going to have the same jersey as last season, and they got a new away jersey instead. They're promoting that, but they're all about Remember, it used to be 2-year cycles back in the day.
Yeah.
90s, 90s, they're going to try and bring
That's
that
like
back in.
4-year, right.
And I think it should be a thing as well, because like there's a new jersey every single season. Actually, every time Johnny Ward is on, he rants about this. There's the new jersey every single season. I actually agree with him that it's a bad thing.
Maybe if they brought out a New Jersey, they would have been able to afford Christian Eriksen's wages for another season. They'll get relegated.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy United got him, actually. And the second question, Ger, is from John in the live comments. Has Ger tried turning it off and turning it on again?
I did, actually. I did exactly. That was the first thing I did.
did it work?
And the good old restart. No, it needed someone with some technical proficiency to come down and hook it in. They put a 5 cent in the meter and it worked.
Nice.
Yeah, okay.
Good to have you back.
Okay. Mark Dunning's also mentioned that Odegaard's captain of Norway.
There you go.
So, yeah.
There are different responsibilities. Like, expectation expectation in Norway has improved somewhat in recent years, but not to the point where they're qualifying for stuff, right?
No, but I guess there is some level of experience. I just think that no matter who you put the armband on him right now at Arsenal, they will seem inexperienced because it is a young squad. There's no one there that you're like, that guy's proven. Like, I mean, the two guys I mentioned, Ramsdale and Ben White, were only at the club a year. Odegaard has an extra year at the club. Like, I don't think it's as big an issue as you think it is.
Okay, very quickly before we get to the lads, Rochford in the mix as Mayo line up their new boss. This is Shea McGrath on the back page of the Daily Mail. Stephen Rochford is among the major names believed to be in the frame for the Mayo manager role, with deadlines for applications closing tomorrow evening. County board officials have indicated that a number of applications have already been received. Castlebar Mitchells are understood to have nominated Declan Shaw for the position. However, the race is concentrated on 3 main candidates: Michael Solon, who managed the county to the All-Ireland Under-21 title in 2016, Ray Dempsey, who led county champions Knockmore to back-to-back senior titles, and Rochford, who brought Mayo to finals in 2016 and 2017. So, very quickly, yesterday, obviously 24 hours ago, the Meath job and everything that happened around that, where Rochford's name was linked to the backroom team of Bernard Flynn, very quickly that has been dispelled. The notion that he was going to be involved in any way as anything other than an advisor to set up the backroom team, but it seems like he was never a confirmed member of that backroom team, and so now that kind of clears things up, because you can't be two places in once. And if it seems like he's definitely very keen to get back and take that Mayo job on again, because it feels like there's a bit of unfinished business there. Yeah,
and he was a good Mayo manager, and I think he was the Mayo manager who came closest. So I know, like, 17 for me was one of the most regrettable events in Mayo history, even though there's a lot of regrettable events. They came so close that day, and like I think that maybe you can see why they want to go back to that, try and get the manager who brought them to that point. I'm always just conscious about having these conversations, because the guy who is the former Mayo manager is always going to be the most high profile. Like, I have not seen enough of Knockmore or Castlebar Mitchells to tell you how good those managers are, and they could be outstanding candidates. To be fair, the same thing happened with Rochford when he came in the first time, although a lot of us had seen Cura Finn play. So I'm not well placed enough to tell you how good the other two guys are as managers, but obviously they're well-known Mayo figures, and it's going to be a good battle between them for it. But the temptation would definitely be there to go back for Rochford, you would think, because I guess Horan Mark II wasn't a disaster. They came close again. Obviously it petered out quicker than it did the first time. It might just be quite a swift thing. If they're going to win in All-Ireland, they might have to do it next year.
Alright, it's 7:48. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. If you're a Mayo football fan, tell us who you want and why. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 a.m. Aaron Gillane and Nickie Quaid are standing by. We're going to talk to them in a moment. Noelle Healy is going to preview the All-Ireland football final, which seems to be the end of this Meath team in many respects, or potentially the end of this Meath team. Meath and Kerry takes place this Sunday. Sports pages will bring you Virtual Insanity with John Duggan at 8:40. Martin Lipton is going to give us the Spurs preview of the season at 8:50. We're going to hear from Darren O'Reilly, who is got an interesting sports nutrition project ongoing. He's a former rugby player. And then Mike Casey was chatting with Joe last night. We'll bring you that. So it's a bit of a Limerick special today on OTB AM. And why wouldn't it be? What a unbelievable achievement from the team to do 3 in a row. And I'm delighted to say both Aaron Gillane and Nickie Quaid are with us this morning. Nickie, good morning to you. Aaron, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Morning.
Nickie, when does your club competitions kick back into overdrive?
All this weekend now, where everyone is out this weekend. I think there might even be a few starting tonight towards Saturday, Sunday. So it's back into action straight away again.
Right, no rest for the wicked.
No. But sure, look, it's nice to get back with the club when you've been away for so long. It's nice to get back into that again, and obviously club players are mad to get going as well. They've been waiting for a long time to get started, so it's nice to get started.
Aaron, what were the celebrations like this time? How do they compare and contrast to previous years?
I suppose similar enough to 2018. Minted around Limerick there for a while. It's kind of taken away from us in 2020 and 2021, but I suppose kind of had to be sensible too with COVID. But in saying that, we still enjoyed ourselves. But in my opinion, I'd say this year was definitely the best week we had of it.
It definitely felt in the build-up like the fact that the stadium was going to be a full house made a difference. Like, I know last year obviously there was 40,000 and we were all so grateful for the fact that there was an All-Ireland final and there was fans there and it was a good occasion, and still there was crazy noise being made last year, but this year the stadium was genuinely rocking coming down the final 10 minutes. Did you notice a difference?
I suppose when you're playing, maybe not, no. Maybe when someone gets a big score or a point when it's coming down the home stretch, then you maybe might take a small bit of notice the noise in the crowd. But I suppose what kind of stood out for me, I actually went up to the football there last Sunday, and it's only then I actually realised, Gene, like, there was the same crowd at our match last week. Like, this is just unreal. So it was only actually the following week I really copped on to the crowd and the amount of people and the level of noise that was actually there.
Have you watched the game back yet?
I watched bits and pieces of it. Yeah, I'm yet to actually sit down and watch the whole thing through, but I'll definitely do it now before the weekend. And
the bits and pieces you were watching back, was it like clips of your own, like the clips from the coaching ticket going, here, listen, you need to improve on this, or well done on that? Was it? Is it the official analysis? Has that already started?
Basically, yeah. Some people might think it's kind of stupid, like watching back clips once the year's actually over, but I suppose just the routine we got into after every match this year to look back and analyse our own game and see how we get on and see where we can improve. So yeah, that's basically it, to be honest.
Wow, how did you get on?
Grand in bits and pieces and not so great in other pieces. So a few things to work on before we go back next year.
Right, wow, geez, that is hardcore. Nicky, how did you get on? Have you looked back at your bits yet?
Yeah, similar enough, I suppose. I haven't sat down fully kind of by myself and watched the whole thing through, but I have watched highlights and bits and pieces of things, and obviously there's areas that you're happy enough with and there's areas that you're disappointed with, that you want to try and improve, and I suppose that's the only way you can improve and get better going forward to next year, that you have areas that you need to work on and hopefully improve them for when you get going again.
You've obviously got a very different physical perspective in terms of, like, you see the whole pitch. Do you notice the crowds a little bit more then? Like, did you notice the fact that the stadium was entirely full down both sides? When you're looking for the runs of, say, Aaron from the corner out to the side, or from the side out to into the middle to find a bit of space, you're like, actually, you know what? There's like, it's hard to see because there's like 40,000 bodies on one side and 40,000 on the other side.
Not necessarily, no, in the middle of the game. It's just more the noise, I suppose, that you do hear. We do notice that when there is scores and things, that it is a bit louder. But sometimes, to be honest with you, it's easier play in a stadium that has people sitting there, because there's just more colour. And often find when the stadium is empty, it can be difficult enough to see, even sometimes to see the ball, depending on, like, if there's grey seats completely all in the background and things like that, it can be more difficult. So sometimes when the stadium is full, or there's more people there, it is a bit easier to pick out people or pick out the ball. I find anyway, especially in certain stadiums, it depending on the colour of the seats if they are empty.
Do you remember much of the game afterwards, or is it actually mainly through watching the video that you kind of remember bits of the game? What's your memory like for it? Because different sports people can remember absolutely every single incident, and then other people are like, what happened in that game again? How did that go?
Yeah, no, I'd be okay. No, yeah, I would remember a lot of it. But that's because physically, I'm not, there's no running around really or anything, so it's more thinking involved for me during the game than anything. So I would remember lots of it. Maybe it's a piece, obviously, that you'd have to see back, and then once you'd see them back, it would kind of trigger, oh yeah, I can remember that now. So I would be okay, really, to remember different bits and pieces of the game, alright, yeah.
And what bits from that game stick out for you now?
I suppose there's just a few puckouts really that you'll be kind of having in your head. You could see the pictures nearly in your head of what you were trying to do, and nearly obviously the ones that didn't go well, they're the ones that you can see what I should have probably done, or maybe that's the second after I hit the ball, you realise that wasn't probably the right option, or and then obviously the goals, you can see you can nearly play all of those in your head and where you were, and could you have done something different for this or that and things like that. So those are probably the main ones that just stick out. It's nearly the mistakes that you can remember more so than the good parts.
We had David Herity on the show last week, Dickie, and he was complimenting you in your puckouts. He said his own experience is that it's quite often like the TV show Take Me Out, where the lights just start disappearing in front of you, whereas your teammates get marked out of it when you're standing over the puck out. Is that what it's like in an All-Ireland final, especially against a Kilkenny team?
It's hard to know. Like, look, I suppose to be fair, for me and our team, the goalie has a very, very small part to play in it, really. Like, it's all about the lads out the field and the movement that they have and the space that they can create. The goalie's part is probably just a very low percentage of that. When the boys create the space and they nearly basically kind of force you to, this is where you have to put it because that's where the space is and that's where I'm moving. And the decision is nearly made for you. So it's more down to the lads out the field and how they set up and create their space. More so than actually the goalie. The execution part is probably the easiest part, really, to be honest with you.
Aaron, traditionally forwards on the inside line would have been able to have a little bit of a rest when the ball was down the far end of the field. It doesn't sound like you guys are allowed to rest because you have to try and make the run to create some space. So what's that like? When do you know when to set off on your runs? Is it as soon as the ball goes wide you make your move, or do you wait until Nicky has the ball in his hands and then try and create the separation?
I suppose like different players play different ways. I suppose myself, like I've got used to playing with, I suppose, Dermot now, and it's just ideal that he's in the halfback line with Partyswell and with Limerick. So like I've came to understand his game very well, so I know basically what he's going to do with the ball straight away. So that definitely benefits me in when to hold my run and when to run. I'd like to think sometimes it maybe buys you a yard or two. But then even over the last couple of years, just getting to know the likes of Deck's game, Dan when he's halfback, Kyle when he's halfback, it's just understanding them and knowing what their preference is, and then I suppose relaying to them what your preference of ball in and all this. So just about working together, really, getting a good understanding of each other.
Is there a common theme in there somewhere, Aaron? Like, is there something that Dermot and Kyle and Declan all like you to do as an inside forward?
I suppose just keep moving, to be honest. I suppose try and make the play as easy as possible for them, just be an option and just be an outlet for them. And like if I'm making the run, they're definitely going to put the ball there. So at the end of the day, it's up to me to win it.
The free taking this year has been off the charts in terms of particularly the long range frees. Like when you have that in your team, does that give you comfort as a free taker as well to know that, like, look, or does it also actually kind of inspire you and drive you on to make sure that your level is as high as Burns' level is?
A bit of both, to be honest. We'd have a bit of slagging against each other if one of us missed one, but to be fair to Dermot, it was very rare this year when he missed one. I think he scored one there in the final, maybe back in his own 45, and like he just can
further, I'd say.
Ball.
Yeah, fella goes from Hill 16.
No, you just have confidence of him standing over the ball from anywhere, and it's just a great tool to have in any team, I suppose,
Because you came through, obviously, and the frees seemed to help you as a young player to get into teams, and then obviously your game developed further from that. Because like I think if I'm right in saying there were some minor teams you were on, there were other minor teams you weren't. There was an under 21 team you were on and off, and then eventually you started racking up the big scores. How important was it having somebody like him in the club who was completely dead-eye?
I suppose it's nice going into games. Like initially when I started off, I never actually took frees. I actually only started taking frees for the Partyswell senior team when our real free taker Jack Keller got injured, and then Gary Kirby was actually over us at the time, so he asked me would I take him. So I was like, I chance it, sure. But like I knew myself that Dermot was going to come up as far as the 65, so like I didn't have to worry about it's going to be a tough free for me way out the field. I just had the comfort of knowing Dermot was always there, and just like you can tell by him, you can just always rely on him. The man just doesn't feel pressure. Just when the ball goes down, it's going one place, and that's just straight over the bar. So as I said, no fair play to him. He's just unreal.
So you essentially become a free taker relatively late, or it's not something that you were always, it wasn't always your role. So how do you get into the habits that free takers always talk about in terms of routine and the repetition that's required to put the ball between the posts?
Simple enough, really. It's not a short answer, but like you just have to put in the work and put in the practice. I suppose initially when I started taking frees, as I said, Gary Kirby was our club manager, and he was one of the best free takers Limerick ever had. So getting advice off him definitely stood to me. And then like bringing on that part of my game another bit, credit is definitely due to Paul Knock, and just the mindset he gave me and just the knowledge he gave me being able to take frees. So all credit to both them lads.
What sort of advice are we talking?
Can't give away all our secrets here. But no, it just helped me tune in a bit and just get a routine and like focus on the actual free and not focus on the occasion and all that sort of crack. So simple enough, really.
Yeah, just one other question from what you said earlier on, Aaron. You spoke about the fact that you got into a routine of watching games back or doing your video analysis after every game. Was there a particular moment in this season where the video analysis was particularly truthful or harsh and you came away reeling a little bit as players, or are they usually fairly positive experiences from your own perspective? I suppose collectively as a team there's definitely always things that we definitely be happy with after games, but in saying that there's always stuff to work on that, you know, and individually as well it's the exact same thing. You know, you might have thought you played relatively well, but there's always going to be something that did kind of annoy you that you could have done better, and that's the thing that's going to stick out, you know. That's the thing you're going to go back on Tuesday and Friday, and that's what you're going to be focusing on and trying to perfect. Like, you know, it's almost as if the good things you did in the match go straight out the window, but just kind of get into a mindset of constantly wanting to improve. So that's just the way we kind of work, I suppose. And is that kind of your own mentality, or do you sometimes need a coach to tell you this is what you did wrong? To be fair, like we do have top class coaches. Like some of the video analysis we do with Shawnee, he breaks it down fairly simple for us, so it's very plain to see. But no, if ever we need advice after the likes of Paul or Angus or Dodge or any of them, so they're always there. So I couldn't fault any of them.
Nicky, you've obviously been around the inter-county scene for a bit longer than Aaron, and you've kind of seen the evolution of this great team. When did you start to realise how great this team could be or was becoming? What was the kind of bit where you're like, ooh, this is different?
I suppose, to be honest with you, the back end of 17, you could kind of just see, like we were, I suppose, working with Paul for whatever it was, the 6 or 8 months at that stage, and so you could kind of see maybe a little change, and we felt that, obviously, we were very disappointed with that loss to Kilkenny down in Nolan Park, but I did kind of feel that maybe just coming into that game, there was a little slight change, that things had been picking up, and the younger lads into the squad looked like they were feeling a bit more at home. And then 2018, I think probably the league in 2018 down in Salt Hill, for me, was probably a game still that you could go back to, that, you know, we were at 8 or 10 points down at half time, and we've been stuck in Division 2 or 1B or whatever it was for so many years. To come out on top of that game, it did just feel like just a little change, I suppose, that look, we can mix it with the best, and they were obviously Ireland champions, and to come out with that 1 point win up there was a huge boost for us. And then I suppose we went on then to be clear in a real, like, after extra time, I went to that free taking competition, and just to get over those few games was probably you know, I think from then it kind of, we really started to believe then that look, we can mix it with the best of them, and then to get the first round win against Tip in that 2018 championship was probably similar. So I suppose those maybe 6 weeks from before the Galway game to the Tip game, they were probably really ones that we really believed that this is, you know, we can mix it with the top teams at the moment.
And because that's a time of the year where it's difficult to produce your best hurling, that, like, I don't know, I don't want to reach for the cliches, but actually it's the guts and determination that decide a lot of those league games, as opposed to the lovely patterns of play that we see later on in the year when everybody's making those runs. Or actually, were you guys able to implement the style of play that you wanted, even in slightly, you know, the March, April, May weather conditions were like?
I suppose you could maybe just start to see it coming through, like what Paul and John and things wanted us to do. You could just start that to see coming through, and then when you pick up the results, then I suppose you really start to believe and trust in that process then. Which obviously, like, that time of the year, it is, you know, the weather is poor and the pitches are softer, and it does take a lot of, like, that just hard work and determination and things. And I suppose to get over that line in Salt Hill that day, it was a very windy day and things like that, to just scrape over that line with a lot of young lads. I think it might have even been Kyle Hayes that was injured for a lot of that year, and he came on, I think, maybe that day for his first league game. I think Graham might have been the same, and there's a few lads kind of coming back, and you just felt that the squad is getting stronger now, and we can hopefully push on from here.
Can I ask you about your own game? How does that evolve over that period of time as well? Is that about conversations around puck out strategy? Because, puck out strategy has been important in hurling basically since, Don Logue's era, and maybe even a little bit before that, where they were doing short puck outs. You guys took it to a completely different level, obviously, but did that evolve as time went on as well? And how did that thinking, where did that come from?
Yeah, I suppose, look, you also, like Aaron touched on it there, it's probably down to Sean O'Donnell in particular for me, who's our video analysis, that I could have done a bit of work with him, and he would have just, I suppose, explained, just basically put it out there in pictures for you and to show you the benefits of doing this and doing that and doing something else. And like when you can see it visually then on the camera, there's no hiding place really as such, like that. You can see the benefits of doing this. It serves the team, whether it's long, whether it's short, or whatever it is, and you just get an understanding of that through Sean then and how good he can put that together for you. So I suppose he had a huge impact, I suppose, on me personally, and the work that you can do to visually see the pitch and help like with that sort of thing.
And are you trying to hit people as you see them, or are you trying to hit people as they're going to be in a second and a half? Like, because you've obviously got to take into account their movement. It's a bit like, it seems a little bit like quarterbacking, where you're trying to throw people open. You're trying to hit people open, are you?
Well, look, it obviously depends on the situation, and different teams will throw up different, I suppose, setups to you, and you have to try and work around that. And look, I suppose we have some unbelievable lads in the half-hour line that can move, but they can also stand under the puck out and look to, contest the 50-50 and probably come out on top 8 times out of 10 in that. So look, I suppose it's not a set in stone thing. It's something that we see that maybe we can adapt to different opposition and the way the game is going in certain ways as well. So it's not we do this every game and that's just it,
One last question on this: the patience to stand there on All-Ireland final day with the team's level with 5 minutes left to go and not to rush it. Do you have a routine to calm you down and go, okay, I'm going to take my full allotted time here and I'm going to wait for whatever it is to arrive? Because it definitely felt like you were just calming everything down and making sure that everybody understood, we have control of this, we've got this, don't worry. What's gone through your mind at that stage?
At that stage, a couple of minutes to go, it's probably get the ball as far away as possible to go. To be fair, for the last 5 or 6 minutes, I think the fact that Kyle and Ger Eoin were playing so well, like, you just pick up the ball and you instantly just look right, where are the two boys, which is the best option, and just put down top of them, because they were winning probably 80 or 90% of the ball that was going down top of them. So that was probably the thing. And if they're moving, look, you try and put it in front of them, and if they're standing, you try and put it maybe in front of them to their advantage or down top of their head, because you get bodies around the break anyway. I suppose so. Look, the last couple of minutes is more like that. Try and get the ball away from the goals as possible, and hopefully that you can win it and keep it on the other end of the field.
The puck outs is one element of it. Shot stopping is another. Aaron, how good is Nickie at shot stopping? I'm sure you've tried to beat him in training a good few times.
You'd actually leave training some days and you'd go home and your head would be wrecked and you'd just be annoyed with yourself, because you could be 5 or 6 yards out and your man just pulls a save out and over. And you would be taking, next thing he starts laughing, you're after hitting me in the elbow, you're after hitting me in the knee, you push into the net or something. He'd just be trying to drive you mad, I suppose, but as the years go on and kind of getting used to it, so it's kind of coming to the fact now it's nearly harder to score against him it's harder to score against him than it is to score.
Yeah, it's I wonder, does that feed into Hegarty's finish as well in the final, Aaron? Just having to pick the postage stamp from that position.
Yeah, look, I suppose we're used to just, it has to go when we're in training, with Nickie and Barry and Dave McCarthy, 3 unbelievable goalies. So we're not going to get anything soft against them. So if it is going to be a goal, it has to be a top class finish. But Ger Eoin's finish in the final was, if there's a word better than top class, I was just standing there for about 30 seconds there, my mouth open in awe. I just couldn't believe it. And especially, to be fair to Owen Murphy, to score against him as another top class goalie. So just an absolute cracker.
What's your go-to method for goal scoring at the moment, Aaron? The one that we see often is just bouncing in front of the goalkeeper. Obviously, Ger Eoin's goal was not that, but what's your go-to method? Do you have a habit that you fall back on if you get yourself into a goal scoring opportunity?
Definitely not kicking it,
yeah, definitely not kicking it. We chanced that a few years ago too, and I'm still waiting for one to go in. No, but I suppose I was getting enough slagging off the lads there in the years gone by that anytime I went through on goal, I'd try and hit it into the roof of the net or into the top corner, but they nearly all ended up going over, so I suppose over the last year or two just kept it simple as possible. If I get a goal chance, just low off the ground into the corner, and they're paying off more than the high ones, thank God.
How hard are they to save, Nickie?
Yeah, very hard. Look, I suppose every inter-county forwards, their striking ability is so good, it's very difficult to save that. And sometimes you're just better off hoping that you get in the way and it just hits off you. More so than because the speed that the ball can go at is very, very quick. So look, in fairness to boys, like you can see every night of training, they're working on it before training starts. See our lads are doing a bit of shooting practice, or they're working for goals, and they're doing mini competitions between themselves. So it comes down to that hard work. I suppose really it doesn't just automatically happen, and then I suppose when you continuously put in that hard work, it's just probably ingrained, like that. This is where I want to put it in. Automatically, it just happens then for you that you're aiming low into the corners, or you're aiming to the corners straight away, even when you are in the most difficult of situations.
Aaron, the All-Ireland final against the Kilkenny side, who had beaten you in a semi-final, who you had beaten, and who there's a developing rivalry with. Did it matter that it was Kilkenny in the final? Was there anything extra about that?
Not for us, I don't think so. Anyway, maybe the media and the people, like the crowd and the people outside of our circle going to the match, maybe they could have made something of it, but no, not for us. Look, we still focus on what we have to do. Doesn't matter who we're playing. I know it's probably a boring answer, but that's actually the truth. We just focus on ourselves, really. We obviously have a look at the opposition, but don't delve too deep into then we know what we have to do against them. It doesn't matter if that's Kilkenny, Waterford, Tip, anyone really. It doesn't matter.
Did the 3 in a row matter, or did that get spoken about at all at any stage?
During the year, no, definitely hadn't been spoken about. Probably haven't actually had the opportunity to sit down and talk about it since the final as well, to be honest. But it's just a nice feeling knowing that it's there and that it's over and done with. But I suppose all we can do now is kind of park it, go back, give our all with the clubs, enjoy that, and then back again there to start the January.
I suppose you kind of have to approach it that way, because you're in the middle of trying to create even more history. Like, you've created some history, but if you were to rest on your laurels at this stage, or to consider the fact that you've made history, then it becomes too big a thing in your head, and trying to beat that becomes almost less important. Is that like, we can't think about this until it's over, because if we do, then it might end quicker?
No, like, to be fair, like, we thought about it over the last week. Like, we definitely celebrated it over the last week, and I'm sure there'll be times there over the Christmas and we'll sit down and we'll think about it as a great achievement. But like, we're not dwelling on either. Like, if you're going back training there in January and you think, oh, our work here is done, we're only going to be fooling ourselves and we're wasting our own time, So we have a short enough old career, I suppose. So, like, there's no secrets, but like, you want to win as much as you can as long as you're playing. Like, so, like, I suppose we're not going to be settling for 3, so we're just going to keep driving on as much as we can.
Yeah, so Nicky, I'm hearing you're not going to be happy until you've beaten the great Kilkenny team's record and done the full 5, because we all know that they fell short. So it's you guys against Kilkenny for history.
Look, that is, I suppose, like, maybe that'll be something thrown out there, but there's nothing that to do with. No, I wasn't in any of our thinking before last Sunday, and it isn't going to be in any of our thinking moving forward. Obviously, look, it might be a story that media or whatever we'll try and talk about, but for us, it's just trying to improve ourselves every day, and like Aaron said, get the best out of ourselves, and try and win as much as you can. But, records and things like that don't really come into it as such. Like, it's just we're trying to compete with ourselves and make sure that we're improving every night, and that we're driving each other on and keeping our standards nice and high. And that's all you can do, I suppose, and keep driving our own standards, and hopefully then that will, our performances will stay improving. Anytime
we ask any of the Kilkenny lads who'd win in a match between the 07-08 Kilkenny and you guys, they're like, we'd still win. So I'm going to start asking you guys now, because that's only fair. It's your chance to get back. Who'd win? Nicky, you probably played against that team a couple of times. So your current team, or the team that won in, say, 07 or 08?
I'd probably say them, yeah. They had some unbelievable hurlers.
You've been practicing this answer, it seems. Aaron, tell us the truth.
Sure. It's so hard to compare. Look, I was lucky enough, like I said, to play against a few of those lads. And when I was growing up, then they were heroes of mine. They were people that you'd look up to. Like, and they had, like I said, Gillane, Tommy Walsh, Henry. All these lads were incredible hurlers, and John did so many more. They were a joy to watch for me growing up. They were, I suppose, what made you. I remember being in Croke Park in 07, standing on the hill, and I suppose we were deflated because they had beaten Limerick in the All-Ireland final, but I suppose it was part of it then that just had to say, look, we're witnessing an unbelievable team here, and it was something that I suppose will stick with me forever.
Aaron, I presume you're going to not say Kilkenny. You'd fancy a crack off that team, right?
To be honest, I can't say I do. I'm only thinking here to myself. Imagine if we were playing them, I'd probably run around the field, my hurley out, asking Tommy Walsh or JJ Delaney to sign it or something, so it'd be hard to play against them.
Well, when you do 5, you can come back and tell us the truth on that one. One last one, just Brian Cody, obviously, I think we were talking about it during the week, and he would have come into the changing room after games against Limerick saying that, like, we need Limerick at the top table, and certainly talking about it this week, that seemed to be an inspiration for some of your former colleagues in particular. So when you heard that he was retiring, what did you make of it? Was there anything that you were thinking at that stage, Nicky, that this is like one of the all-time great GA careers, and actually the last match that he's been in charge of was an epic All-Ireland final that we came out the right side on? What was your immediate reaction?
I suppose, look, my first reaction is, what a loss he's going to be to the game, I suppose. Like I said, I grew up obviously watching those teams, and I can remember back into '99 when he got involved first, and like to his longevity, see what he's got. He is the Sir Alex Ferguson really of GA. To be fair to him, his record, is second to none, and he'll be just a huge loss to the game, obviously to Kilkenny in particular, but to the game. He'll be an inspiration, I suppose, of every GA player to look up to, and how he carried himself, I suppose, on and off the field, how competitive he was right until the final whistle last Sunday, from his very first game till the last day. And I suppose, look, to have played against him and being in his company a few times has been a privilege and an honour for me. And I suppose I can say it's just so wish him well in his retirement, and he will be a huge loss to the game.
Well, listen, enjoy the club championship season, and thanks a million for making the time to talk to us. It really is an incredible achievement. You are history makers, and I'm sure at some point over the winter you'll get to enjoy the fact that 3 in a row is really rare. Very, 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 very few human beings have ever experienced it. So thanks a million to Aaron Gillane and Nickie Quaid for joining us this morning. Cheers, lads.
Thanks, lads.
If you've got anything you want to get off your chest, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or you can always leave a comment in the YouTube stream as well. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs. For an effortless finish to your day. After the break, we're going to be joined by 5-time Dublin All-Ireland winner Noelle Healy to preview the Women's All-Ireland football final this weekend between Meath and Kerry. First, here's another All-Ireland winner at Limerick, Mike Casey, talking with Joe last night about the greatness of Cian Lynch.
Did you win a Harty Cup, in your school days with Cian Lynch? You guys would go back that far, would you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay. We were in the same year in school, so yeah, we'd be doing CBS in the Gaelic grounds, I would say, in 14 together.
Right.
Yeah,
right. Was it obvious that the boy could do his thing on a hurling pitch even then?
He's been incredible since he was 10 years of age. Since we first got on to, I remember playing Mackie Cup with him, under 12 hurling, in the city, and he was as good then as he is now. Some of the tricks and flicks and things that he could do. I remember he did a freestyle competition, went out there. I'd say we were 4th or 5th year in school.
Right.
And he just went out the back messing around and put a video up, and the thing went mad. So he's been able to do it for years. He's absolutely incredible, like what he can do on the hurling field,
Yeah, he has that look, all right. Because actually I was reading that even in the training match in advance of the final, where he injured his leg, and it's such a pity for him, that even in that game apparently he was lighting it up.
Yeah, he definitely, there was puck outs that were coming down on top, they were just, his hand is like a magnet, wherever it went, it managed to fall into his hand, so he was definitely putting his hand up for a starting spot, definitely.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
This summer, we're bringing you double Koi gig.
I thought that was going to be a much tighter game.
I cannot tell you the audible gasps that there were in the press box yesterday. They looked as stunned as the team on the pitch did.
I thought that they were stronger than that. I thought that they were tactically more aware than that.
For the best insight and analysis from this summer's Euros, subscribe to the Koi Gig Pod on the OTB Sports app now.
Things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong? Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match, because somewhere out there there's someone for you, and GoDating.ie will help you find them. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
So it is Meath against Kerry in the All-Ireland football final this coming Sunday afternoon, and Meath looking to go back-to-back. Kerry looking to do obviously the double this year, men's and women's, but it'll be a first one for them since the 90s. I'm delighted to say Noelle Healy joins us now to help preview the game. Noelle, good morning to you. How you getting on?
Morning, yeah, not too bad at all.
Who in your head is the favourites for this game?
I can't really look past Meath. I know they've looked a little bit ropey or kind of nervy in their games coming up, but they also look to have improved an awful lot in every game that they've played. I think they looked really composed at the finish there against Galway, working the score. And then again, I was really impressed with the way they kind of clawed back against Donegal and just reeled them back in and really composed finish as well. I think you can't look past the kind of bit of confidence and extra mileage I think that being All-Ireland champions gives you, and being, experienced in that kind of cauldron of Croke Park. This is their 5th All-Ireland final in a row between senior and intermediate, so it is kind of hard to look past Meath at the moment.
There's been a sense that this is the end of this Meath team in some respects. Now, Vicky Wall's obviously gone down to play Australian rules, and there's a couple of others going as well, but the coaching backroom team has already, it's clear that they're going to be breaking up. Does that help or hinder in a way? Because it's like, look, this is one last tour for this group, as the group is going to be constituted, that there is definitely going to be change next year. In some ways, you might be inspired to greater things, but in other ways, it might be a little bit of a distraction.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that it even kind of came out beforehand. It seemed like an unusual thing to be focusing on and talking about. Even from the last Christmas after the final, they were saying no, they didn't want to be a one-hit wonder. They're already kind of putting themselves as like, we want to be on All-Ireland champions again. That's our focus. It's a very different narrative from what you would have heard before. And I suppose even we would have said about it's all just about the next game, we're not looking any further past that. And in fairness to them, it's refreshing, I suppose, to kind of hear that honesty. But I think it can put a bit of pressure on you. I think last year they would have come in as underdogs, that kind of shackles off their back, nothing to lose, freedom about their play. Whereas this year, I suppose there is something not to lose, but I suppose there's more on them, like, a kind of feeling of inevitability. There's not like, we can just do it next year, or, who matters what happens. There is kind of feeling that's reaching the end of the road. I saw, obviously Vicky and Orla are going over to Australia. I had read yesterday that Emma Troy, who's huge for them, I think is going travelling as well. You're using your backroom team that they seem to have a very strong connection to. So I think it could, put, I suppose, a little bit of unknown pressure on them, is that, like, we have to get this done. I kind of thought in the Leinster final when they were playing against Dublin, we know that they had that defensive structure, but they did, I thought, play kind of overly defensive and kind of overly a little bit scared in the first half and kind of drew Dublin on them. And that's kind of been a little bit of a pattern that's followed them throughout their play as well. When, they've kind of drawn teams on them with Donegal, they kind of, because they play so defensively, you're almost giving the team a bit of oxygen and a little bit more space to play with them, more time on the ball. So that could go against them a little bit, but still, I would think that the backroom team would kind of be astute enough to try manage that within themselves. It's always kind of well and good what people are saying to the media. I think they probably have a different narrative themselves within kind of their own group.
I definitely want to ask about that style of play, but just to go back to kind of the first part of that answer, Noelle, is part of the reason why they're happy enough to talk about next year and the people stepping away, especially from a management perspective, is that because there's a genuine concern for where the game is going and for the threat to the women's game in Ireland at the moment?
I'm not sure. It's definitely been a pity, I think, throughout the summer that nearly every big headline story that you see about the LGFA at the moment seems to be what big player is either rumoured to be going or is kind of confirmed to be going over to the AFL. And that is very worrying, for sure. You have somebody like Vicky Wall, who's probably in the prime of her career, such an exciting player to watch. Brings such a different style to Gaelic football, really is one of those players that people kind of sit forward and take notice of when they get the ball. There's always that air of expectation that something's going to happen. And we'll miss that from our game. So I don't know if that's what's on their mind in terms of on Meath's mind, but it's certainly, something that's, I think, has this year of all years become very apparent. in the coverage of the ladies football.
For sure. Like, are you concerned as well about what's going to happen over the next couple of years?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's been fine at the moment because people have been able to do both. We were lucky with Dublin that the girls were kind of given the leeway and given the freedom to be able to participate fully in our season. But if you're losing that, and if you're battling with not only other sports and other interests in Ireland, but kind of that calling of which is completely understandable, of the chance of playing in a professional setup, in lovely weather, and that opportunity to kind of combine that little bit of travelling and that little bit of different experience after college, that's understandable that people are going to jump for that. And I think it would be very unfortunate that we'd lose our players or to that, and would it diminish the spectacle that the ladies football has as well? Like, it is certainly something that you would be worried about, because I just can't see it as being sustainable that the girls would be either allowed or physically even able to combine the two of them. I think it's an awful lot to expect somebody to finish one season, jump on a long haul flight, and all the emotions around that as well, and seeing your family or leaving your family and then come back over here and starting into another season.
I thought there was a really interesting quote from Declan Quill, the Kerry co-manager, during the week. He was saying that himself and Darragh Long were driving up in the car, and they were asking, would David Clifford ever go to Australia? He said, I think David Clifford has so much to stay around Kerry for, because he has a fan base that is just unbelievable. He's a superhero to the kids down there. He can probably have his choice of jobs and whatever he chooses to do. I don't see the attraction of him going to Australia, whereas for a girl who is playing ladies football, it might be, oh Jesus, I'm going to make my money and live a lovely lifestyle over there, whereas here I mightn't even get recognised on the street. Now, like, he doesn't necessarily say it, but is there kind of like a wider conversation there, Noelle, about what's actually keeping players here, given the incentive there is for men's players to hang around and to play football in Ireland?
Not that I've been part of, but I can imagine that it would play in people's minds. I mean, it's been, again, well documented how out of pocket a lot of the ladies football players are. In playing, in playing for your county, be it travel expenses. We certainly don't have the same access to the same amount of grants and things like that. And even, for if you're, it's changed, and I think, since I've left, I think it has improved a little bit. But even just like those appearance fees or things like that, if you're, doing sponsorship and promotion things, certainly when I would have been playing, it was kind of an unspoken thing that the men were getting, an awful lot more than the girls are getting. But we were kind of just, starting to be unhappy, I suppose, with the exposure that we were starting to get. So certainly I can imagine that if, people, if that's where they want to make their money and spend most of their time doing is playing their sport, they can do that, not only, I think it's not only in a place where they can make money or have a fan base, but just I think where they can be, afforded to be very well looked after and supported in terms of access, even just to medical staff and, from an injury point of view as well, and strength and conditioning. And while that has improved an awful lot, hugely, there's fantastic setups in a lot of the inter-counties around. It's not anywhere near what you'd see the kind of juggernauts of the men's game having.
It's interesting because that came up this week with Anna Galvin, the Kerry captain, who I think had been involved in the photo shoot for the Centre of Excellence, and then it turned out they weren't given access to it immediately. They had to fight for access to it, and then eventually they got access to it. But it wasn't taken as a matter of course. It's like, okay, Grant, we're going to use you to highlight the fact that this now exists, but we're not going to give you equal access to it. And apparently it's been fixed, so in fairness, but at the same time, the attitude in the first place was wrong, clearly. It's like, why would you be getting the same access? So there's still loads to go. I do wonder how you feel about the condensed season and the mirroring of it, because it feels like we're coming up on the All-Ireland football final this weekend a little underprepared, a little less familiar with the players than we should be. Like the Dubs game and Dublin going out of the championship at the stage that they did wasn't as big a story as it would have been if, or as it should have been. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that it didn't get the coverage that it did. I mean, when the men lost at this, at the semi-final stage, but last year there was, a huge amount of write-ups about it at the end of an era and things like that. And I was so surprised with how under the radar it went. I'm sure the girls were delighted that they didn't have to face into it, and they were kind of able to get on with themselves afterwards. But it is such a pity because, I think it is such a big story, especially with Dublin and Cork, and kind of the the big presence that they've had in the ladies football championship over the last nearly 20 years at this stage. Well, it's 10 years, not 20 years at this stage, but and both of them are gone at quarter-final stage. I can understand why they did it, because I suppose, you know, on the face of it, it's kind of the football season and it kind of goes with that. But I think the Camogie and the ladies football championship has kind of just been lost amongst all of it. You know, you're still kind of hearing stories about, you know, what the brilliant final between Kerry and Galway were at the weekend, and now it's kind of only starting to pick up about the ladies football final. There were, you know, the quarter-final stages, you had all the provincial finalists losing. It was a phenomenal, you know, phenomenal results from it. They were brilliant games, and I think, you know, unless you kind of have a specific interest in it and you go out and search it does kind of get lost amongst it, and it does affect then the profile of the players that are playing and the profile of the teams that are playing, and kind of the build up to the championship as well. I think another kind of factor about you know, that the condensed final might fit into it as well, or affect, is that the ladies football final would traditionally kind of rely an awful lot on, you know, the younger spectators and buses of younger spectators that schools would organise and clubs would organise. And now you've got a situation, I mean, I don't know how ticket sales are going or anything like that, but potentially where you're facing to a time where a lot of people are away. It's an August bank holiday where people are going to be away as well. So I don't know how that's going to affect attendances and you know, the atmosphere that's going to be created as well. So like, everybody wants to be playing football kind of in the height of the summer, but you also want to be playing in front of big crowds and big atmospheres. So, you know, I think if they maybe push it out by a month or two, it wouldn't have done any harm, because it probably is something that at the moment as well, you know, as I said, with ladies football, they probably do need to kind of have a bit more of a story about themselves rather than what players are going, or, you know, players that are unhappy with the situation of the expenses and stuff that they're getting. So, you know, it probably would have been a bit of an easier win for them.
Well, when you think about it, like the GAA media is crying out for some inter-county action. Everybody, like, not everybody, but loads of people are complaining. TD Alan Dillon has a press release out at the minute saying, oh, the men's inter-county season needs to be elongated. We're handing it over to other sports. It's like, well, they could just hand it over to the women's game, which would be perfect. You know, we could have 2 months now where the women's game is on every weekend on terrestrial TV and everybody's watching because it's top quality inter-county action between competitive sides. It feels like there's an easy solution to this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's it. You've put the nail on the head there. I mean, yeah, it's not like it's pretty much the same organisation. It's the same game. Follow it on. You can support your county. I'm pretty sure the people in Kerry would be more than happy to go for another few months and following around, you know, their team as well. So it is a pity. I think, you know, they probably just took the easy route out and just kind of followed the men's. I don't know, were they worried about getting access to pitches when the club season kicked off with the men's team? That's always an issue as well. So, you know, it's hard to know what the sense or the reasoning was behind that decision to just follow the men's structure.
Yeah, hopefully they can revisit. How do these two teams match up, Noelle? You say at the start it's hard to look past Meath, but that ultra defensive approach, like you can see the burden heavy lies the head that wears the crown. Like the burden of trying to defend your title is completely different from last year when they could smash and grab as essentially a Division 2 team who just got promotion and were like for the first time up there in the big leagues and able to go almost under the radar, whereas this team is now the ones that are up against a team coming from, you know, not nowhere, but like certainly under the radar, and it's a completely different scenario from a psychological perspective.
Yeah, completely. You have to change your whole, like, not ethos of your team, but your whole kind of psychological priming of your team, really, because absolutely you're kind of going in with that chip on your shoulder, especially a Meath team going up against a Dublin team where you've, you know, kind of endless motivation. Everybody's writing us off. Nobody believes that we can do this. You know, they backed up big performances by beating Armagh and beating Cork and kind of were, you know, on a really good run going into the final last year, whereas this year, you know, all the stories are about them. Everywhere they go out, everybody knows who they are around Meath. There's a lot of expectation amongst, you know, Meath fans as well with them. So, you know, there's kind of nowhere really, I'd say, a lot of the time for them to hide away from it. But that can work in two ways. You know, I'm sure they can take a bit of energy from that as well and a bit of confidence from it and from the support that they're getting. But yeah, look, I suppose people are much more aware of kind of what they're going to bring and, you know, the type of players that they have as well. you know, you look at the likes of Vicky Wall last year. She had a phenomenal year. You know, was by streets ahead, I'd say, you know, kind of player of the year with her performance that she put in the final. I thought she was brilliant. And then this year, I think people have kind of started to get to grips with her a little bit and kind of started to frustrate her a little bit, and she's probably not playing up to her own standards that she would have had before. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges for them, because then, you know, other players have to step up, and I think Stacey Grimes has been doing that for them this year. I think they've been brilliant. But in fairness to them, I mean, you know, they haven't tried to change too much. They haven't gone away from what they are. You know, if it's not broke, don't fix it, and they've stuck to that kind of defensive structure and then fast break that has stood them well in the past. And you know, I think on an open pitch in Croke Park, the conditioning that they have, if they play with that kind of bravery and not sit back too much, and you know, sacrifice kind of one or two players, like keep Stacey Grimes or keep Emma Duggan a little bit higher up the pitch as that outlet, I think they could, I think you know, they could cause Kerry an awful lot of trouble.
Like the flip side of that is that Kerry have been playing, it seems anyway, without any sort of fear, because maybe they just don't have any baggage at all from the last few years, for not being in the conversation for All-Ireland glory at all. And in the semi-final, it was just the plundering of goals that won them the game. As I say, just attacking with this level of chaos. So I presume that gets muted to a huge degree against that Meath defence.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like, it's funny, on the front of it, Kerry look like this kind of young, fresh team, but they actually probably have some of the, apart from Donegal, would have probably some of the most experienced players in it. I mean, you've Louise Nima-Hertig, who's been playing, I'd say she's probably nearly in her 13th or 14th season playing with the Kerry senior team. Emma Costello or Emma Sherwood, Caught Lynch, and Lorraine Scanlon. You know, they're very strong, really experienced spine of the team. And then you've Louise Galvin as well coming in to the team. So, you know, they're not kind of the young, fresh-faced team that wouldn't have had the same experience. You know, they're fairly battle-hardened. They're girls that would have been playing against. You know, they obviously played in the All-Ireland final in 2012. They would have played, you know, a lot of Munster finals against that Cork team and beaten that Cork team in Munster final. So they're well able to kind of navigate themselves through a tough match in a high-pressure situation. So I would say they're probably not as inexperienced as kind of fresh faces we're being led to believe. But they're playing with kind of a really brilliant style of football, you know, that I absolutely love watching. It's kind of the style of football that if I was part of a team, or if I was, you know, in any way involved in a team, that's what I'd be kind of telling to play, or what I would love watching. You know, it's quick ball. They run the ball when they need to run the ball. They kick the ball when they see the passes. I think Declan Quill looks like they've done a brilliant job with them from a skill level point of view. They look like they've, you know, put a lot of time, both from underage, from the younger girls coming up, and then them themselves. They look really sharp on the ball. So, you know, from that point of view, I think they're well valued for their position in the final. Their style of play, it could kind of be the death of them, or it could be the destroying of Meath. I think, you know, they run the ball a lot. They've strong runners from deep. Emma Costello and Caught Lynch kind of come deep off the shoulder. The same with Sheahan Roche's, you know, scoring goals for fun as well. And if they can time that well enough, I think they could really open Meath up. I thought, you know, Meath against Galway kind of showed how vulnerable that kind of that pack defence is, when you get players that can kind of make those probing runs deep in and get quick players off the shoulder. And it was kind of similar to what we would have seen in the men's game with Stephen O'Brien in the first half, when Kerry were playing a little bit nervously and passing the ball around the top of the D. You know, he was kind of having those injection of runs, that injection of pace, and creating that space in the defensive structure. And I think that's kind of what Kerry will need to do. But you know, they need to be very careful with that timing, because if they're kind of running the ball into blind alleys, I think Meath will eat them up. They'll kind of be happy for them to do that all day. Whereas if they're making those proper runs and have somebody quick off the shoulder with those quick hand passes that kind of they've been showing they can do as well, you know, they look like they can think very quickly on the ball, then I think they could open Meath up and be in for a few goals. So I think this is going to be a different kind of beast, or a different task that Meath have come up against. I think if Donegal had the conversion rate that Kerry has shown in the last few games, they probably could have caused Meath a little bit more trouble than they did. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting match.
Like you talk about the experience that some of the Kerry players have, and like they're here to win now, and like Ger was talking to you earlier about the players that might be leaving, like Kerry also have that problem as well. Like their star in Paris McCarthy has got a scholarship to go to East Tennessee State University from the start of next season. Like she's this unbelievably talented player, so they're going to lose players as well, so they want to win now. One of the last questions actually I had, Noelle, is just on Meath. Do you think their style of play is actually getting the best out of them? Like I know it's very hard to criticise a team who are All-Ireland champions and who are winning pretty much every game, but is there a ceiling that they're actually not achieving given the way that they're setting up?
Yeah, I would love to see them play with, even at least 4. Like if you look at Niamh O'Sullivan, Vicky Wall, Emma Duggan, Stacey Grimes, 4 of the best forwards in the country. And for a lot of the time of their matches, particularly, you saw it towards the end of the game, you see Stacey Grimes and Emma Duggan down the back in their nearly 22 tackling. And, you can't fault them for their work rate, but I'm just kind of wondering, why aren't they just keeping at least 3 out of the 4 in a spine or something to kind of help with that breakout, or just get the most out of them, see what they can do when they're scoring off fresh legs. It's definitely something that I would absolutely love to see them play a little bit more of. I think you're kind of, Vicky has picked up yellow cards in the last few games as well, just from kind of consistent fouling or 3 ticks, and it's just from kind of, I suppose, clumsy tackling and kind of I suppose late tackles that are coming in late in the game, maybe when she's tired. And again, you can't fault them for their work rate, but is that, are they kind of, I suppose, trying to get the most out of it? Are they putting too much emphasis on, like, okay, you need to get your tackles in, you need to get your work rate in, to the detriment of then them losing players because they're putting in tired tackles, rather than saying, playing a little bit more cleverly and, knowing if she's on 2 ticks, or, she's on a tick, or she's getting tired, to say, look, Vicky, just sacrifice that part of your game and stay a bit higher up and do a job for us up closer to goal. Because that's where they're dangerous, and that's where they're going to get the most change out of them. They haven't really been scoring that many goals this year, and if you saw them for their club, they're well able to do it. So it definitely would be something that I would like to see a bit more of. I think it's a risky game, because especially you have a tendency then when things are going bad, you rely so much on your defensive structure that you can retreat into it a little bit and draw kind of teams onto you a bit. With what we saw in the men's game, Armagh against Galway, when they conceded they conceded the goal, the kick out to Galway, and kind of just threw them on them, and gave them time to work a shot. And I think Kerry will do that. Kerry can shoot from distance. They're well able to take their score, so it's a risky one for them.
All right, well, styles make fights, so hopefully it's a bit of a classic. Noelle, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Not at all, thanks.
It's Noelle Healy giving us some interesting thoughts on the state of the women's game, and then the preview of the final on Sunday, which does sound like it should be a good game. Like if there's a structure there that both teams are slightly different in outlook, then there's enough of a contrast. Yeah, and I think the key part of it is that Kerry are strong enough to potentially win this game. I know that they're outsiders, but if they were complete underdogs, Meath would just completely crush them. But 2 points is the spread. I just checked it there. And I know for a fact that they're very, very confident. Kerry are very confident of upsetting the odds this weekend. Yeah. All right. Okay. They were all hanging out with you, telling the dark secrets. No, but the Kerry Mafia has decided, right, we're showing up again. We only travel when we expect to win. They're travelling. That's what you're telling me. There is no mafia. 8:43. Time for virtual insanity.
You have entered Power Drive. Oh, wow!
Right, John Duggan.
Ger Eoin, how are we doing?
Good.
And I went through this incredibly brilliant spell between about Halloween and February, and now I'm in the cold Ice Age snap. So this is the way this bloody thing goes. So there is a little bit of a health warning beside these selections, but every week is a new week.
What do you put the cold snap down to? Life gets in the way?
Life gets in the way. Rory McIlroy doesn't win the Open. Rory McIlroy wins the Open, is 27% profit for the year.
Right.
Doesn't win the Open. There you go. It's like it literally is a seesaw, and the balancing act of that, because I'm generally not staking 100 a week or whatever. Like I'm staking like it's 20 here, 20 there. You win a bit, you're up about 20%. You lose a bit, you're down about 15-20%. So it's never going to be 50%. it's just going to be in that seesaw around 1,000.
You saw that somebody did the combined score at the 4 majors this year, and Ryan McIlroy was like 20 shots ahead of everybody else.
So there you go. So look,
I presume he would prefer to miss 3 cuts and win one of them.
Exactly, he would, and wouldn't we all? But Cameron Smith did win. So look, this is the Rocket Mortgage Classic. It's in Detroit. It starts today at 11:45. I picked 5 golfers. They're on otbsports.com and on the OTB Sports app. Taylor Pendrith is 70-1, and I think he's overpriced. I think he is the value bet of this week. He's 5 each way, virtual money. He was one of the best players in the Corn Ferry feeder tour last season with 8 top 10s. Then he nearly won in Bermuda on his 4th start. He hits the ball a mile, which you need to do this week. It's 4 par 5s in the 72-hole golf course. Par 72. He was 13th at the Players' Championship, injured his rib, was out for months, came back, was 13th earlier this month, was 11th last time out, and I think Taylor Pendrith can definitely contend this week at 70-1. The second guy is Cameron Young, who, like Will Zalatoris now, is the best player on the PGA Tour not to have won. So he was second at the Open, as we know. He's 18-1 this week for 4 each way. He's been 4 times second this year. He's played well on a variety of golf courses, so I'm not worried that he hasn't seen this golf course before, and he makes a bunch of birdies. So Cameron Young, it's just about a matter of time. The third guy is Denny McCarthy, the guy with the Irish name. Has been the best putter on tour the last few years, but he's improved his long game significantly. So he's gone from strokes gained 108th on tour to 33rd on tour in terms of strokes gained. Really contended at the US Open. People might remember that. 45-1 for 3 each way. Denny McCarthy, a much better player than he used to be. And a couple of lads as well, outsiders. Danny Willett, who was in the top 10 last week, needs to keep his tour card. He's 18-1 each way. And Doc Redman, who was second in this 3 years ago, is completely out of form. So he's only going to get €1 each way of my money at 250-1. So Doc Redman, Danny Willett, Denny McCarthy, Cameron Young and Taylor Pendrith in ascending order or descending order, whatever way you want to put it. But Taylor Pendrith is the headliner this week at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And hopefully next week we'll have a winner.
All right, that is this week's Virtual Insanity.
You have entered Power Drive.
For the vast majority of teams or fans of Premier League football teams, with probably the exception of Leicester, this is the one week of the year where you're like, yeah, something good could happen. This could be the year. Villa might finish 7th or 8th. Owen earlier, John, thinks Arsenal definitely in the Champions League. If things just bounce right for them, maybe we might have put a title challenge in. And the boys got higher and higher and higher, just like that. You think that there's a good chance, I suspect, that Antonio Conte is the man?
Tottenham will finish second.
Ooh, and would you be happy, or is it like a disappointing second?
I wouldn't mind seeing them win a trophy. We just finished second in 2017, and even the season before that we were in the hunt for the title. So to win the title against Manchester City, I think Liverpool might slip a little bit this season. But I agree with you, Ger. Our T-shirts are as wide as they can be. We're walking around with the widest T-shirts in Ireland at the moment in terms of our hopes and dreams for the Premier League season until the jam donut gets splattered all over the T-shirt, and you realise that you're going through 9 months of pain now, and you can't wash that T-shirt.
There shouldn't be, though, 9 months of pain. I think the hard part was keeping Conte when it looked like he was so pissed off.
Yeah, Burnley, I want to leave, I want to throw my toys out of the pram. What a bluff call on Daniel Levy, of all people, and Joe Lewis, that they actually, okay, we're going to have to open a chequebook now and give you 150 million quid to spend on players. Wow, that's pretty unusual for Tottenham Hotspur. I think they realised that the fans were going to revolt if we had another Pochettino-style situation again, and if Conte, who has all the managerial chops, quit the club, it would be good. You managed to get Conte when Man United were dithering, and then you didn't take advantage of that. Brilliant coup to get him. He's not Jose. With a lot of these managers that have been through, the revolving door of the Premier League, a lot of them have been past their prime. Conte has not. Like, he got Tottenham in the Champions League last season. I couldn't believe that he did, and Arsenal obviously gave us a bit of an assist. But look, 6 signings. He's got Richarlison in, who will be obviously motivated because of the World Cup in November. I was looking at Kane and Son have scored 40 goals in the Premier League between them the last 2 seasons. Kulusevski has been a brilliant revelation of a loan signing from Juventus. Bentancur in the middle as well. Yves Bissouma is an excellent player. We saw the possession stats that Brighton had last year. He's brought in Jed Spence and On the right wing, and Perisic on the left. Lucas Moore has even been playing as a wing back in the close season. Fraser Forster's now back up to Hugo Lloris. There is a squad there that has been developed. I don't know what's going to happen with Matt Doherty. If he's fit, he can flourish as a wing back in that team. And then they brought in Clement Longley from Barcelona on loan. So I am very, very excited as a Spurs fan, because I think Conte will get the best out of these players. And it's not a case of Harry Kane gets injured, as has happened in the past, then we're in real trouble if you have Son and if you have Richarlison. So I don't think they've stopped there. Rumours about James Maddison, that they're interested in him. Maybe they do need a bit more of a creative spark, but they're going to get a lot of the dead wood out of the club. We know that Conte is a short-term guy. I don't think he's going to be there for 5 years, blooding players and getting all the youth in. It's all about the now, and that's what Perisic is all about, isn't he? Getting the 33-year-old into the team, straight into the team, and see how he go. But when I'm looking at it, I think United the Frankie de Jong thing just sums up United for me, where they are at. I think Arsenal have done well with Zinchenko and Jesus signing for them. Chelsea, I think Raheem Sterling will have a great season, but Chelsea still, to me, I don't know if they're fully complete. So I do think it's between. I think Spurs are clearly the third best team when we're analysing it, and if I feel that Liverpool are going to dip a little bit, which I do, I just think Liverpool have been on the go for quite a long time. Have they bolstered enough in the middle of the middle field? I'm not so sure. So I do think Spurs are going to have a great season, and we'd love to win a trophy. We haven't won a trophy in 14 years. So I don't know about you guys with Villa and Arsenal, but I'm feeling excited.
I think you've got very good reason to feel excited after the way things finished last year. The one slight caveat is Bayern Munich making come hither eyes.
Yeah.
It's like, are you allowed to do that? You're not really allowed to do that. But they did it.
They did it, yeah. I was surprised that they did it.
Well, I suppose they're so used to doing it in Germany. They're just like, oh, you're very good at football.
Yeah.
Come and play with us.
How much I wonder would they bid for him? They paid 77 million for De Ligt. That's a lot of money for a centre half last week. So, but Harry Kane will not go anywhere until the World Cup. And it's actually one of the drawbacks of Spurs. Most of their players, like Romero as well, they're going to the World Cup. Whereas you think like Haaland won't go to the World Cup, Salah will not go to the World Cup. A lot of clubs have players that'll be rested, and it's one of the fascinating. There's a brilliant guys called the Big Kickoff in the Racing Post. I was reading it all day yesterday, and it goes through every single club. It's the impact of the World Cup in Qatar and like the freshness, or whether players will be inspired by it, or actually maybe they'll be coming home early anyway.
Yeah. The only thing is, like, Salah and Mane went off in the middle of the season last year, and I mean, maybe it had some impact towards the end of the year. They still were firing on all cylinders to the very end.
There you go. So
maybe Salah was tired in the Champions League final.
There was also games on when they were away, so that's obviously going to have a more significant impact. Like, I know that the rest thing is also a factor, but
as in their team was,
as in like the Premier League doesn't take an AFCON break,
Guys, I've just noticed the shirts are very similar.
I mean, look,
I thought I said something wrong there. The look there was, I was like, are Premier League not taking a World Cup break?
Has anybody said that yet?
I think this actually often happens. We're obviously on a similar rotation of shirts.
Yeah. Let's move on. John, thanks very much for that.
All right, guys.
It's 8:52. Martin Lipton joins us now to continue the Spurs chat. Martin, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, John is a Spurs fan and is feeling pretty optimistic about things, and I think with good reason, right?
I think so, yeah. So, look, it would be ridiculous to assume that because they bought reasonably well this summer and they got Conte, that means they're going to win the title. But I do think the minimum aim and expectation actually will be to be best of the rest behind City and Liverpool. And in what will be a bizarre season for all the reasons we've discussed, or you discussed just now, let's see what happens. But they've got goals in them, there's no doubt about that. They've probably got more goals in them now. They don't have to rely on Kane to play every game, which is for the better. They appear to be recruiting well and strengthening the obvious limitations in the squad. So they're in a better place now than they were this time last year, that's for certain.
I think a lot of the faith is based around the improvement in the players who were already there that he decided to put faith in, but also the signings in the Christmas window last year hit the ground running really quickly, which suggests that Conte knows what he's doing, that he can get the best out of players who have been underperforming. He can also integrate players really quickly, and then this is a turnover of the squad and it's his team really quickly. He is still at the peak of his powers, it feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it needed change. And for a number of reasons, the change was delayed. A lot of it was due to the building costs of the new stadium. They needed to get the finances in place. And then as they were looking to utilise the extra income that the stadium would give them, we had the pandemic. So it took them, 18 months after it was answered, they still hadn't opened, rather. They still had made next to nothing from the stadium, which was designed to earn them, £6 million from every home game. Now that funding, weekly funding or bi-weekly funding, is on tap. Therefore, it allowed Conte to make the demands, but importantly, Levy answered and said yes. And that was the difference.
Yeah, there's no point in having a stadium if the attraction there is a mediocre team with no Harry Kane and Son goes and so obviously they had to back him. But the fact that he's been so successful, I'm not sure everybody expects him to be this successful this quickly, and getting into the Champions League is like super bonus territory.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you looked at it from the overall quality of the squad, you'd have said Spurs were 5th or 6th last season. I think that Manchester United underperformed appallingly, and Arsenal, in the final analysis, couldn't cope with the pressure of expectations. So they sneaked through the back door. But they did that because they won so many matches at the end of the season. I mean, they didn't, get handed the points. They actually had to go out and win them, and they did. And a lot of that was because the Bentancur and Kulusevski came in and gave an extra dynamic to the team in January. The longer Conte was there, the more he was able to work with the players in training to get them to understand. He once says that a lot of players, to be automatons, to know instinctively what to do, to work under his system. And if they complain, it's, well, I'm the boss, and look at what I've done. And you can't look at his track record at all the clubs he's been at and not think, well, actually, maybe he's got a point. As others have pointed out, he won the league with Victor Moses at right back. That says it all, really, at Chelsea. He turned a Chelsea team that had been a disaster the previous campaign and finished 10th for all those reasons, with falling out Mourinho and everything else, and made them champions. And of course, if he hadn't done that, Spurs would have been champions that year, because they were second by some distance in that season. And everybody at Tottenham wants to win something. There's no doubt about that. They believe this bloke can do it. They recognise that he's the man in charge. And it is working. Now, whether it will continue to work, whether players want to be scolded and moulded by Conte for the long term is less clear. But I think the general view of most of them, this is our chance. We have a real opportunity, and we actually see from top to bottom, this club knows what it wants to do now.
When Matt Doherty comes back from injury, is he going to have the same level of love from Antonio Conte as he did before his injury?
If he plays like he did, yes. I mean, we've had this conversation before, and I've said I always felt that it just seemed a club too big for Doherty. I thought he was struggling to be the player he'd been at Wolves, or indeed was in an Ireland shirt. And then suddenly last season, for a couple of months, he was absolutely outstanding. He's certainly a far better attacking player than Emerson Royal, and that was one of the things Spurs missed actually at the end of the season, was his attacking thrust. But they bought Spence to give them that, and he's younger. On Doherty's plus side, of course, he is versatile. He can play left wing back as well, less effectively than right wing back, but he can play there. I think that Doherty was certainly, if he's fit and right, I think he would probably start the season as the first choice right back or right wing back. That doesn't mean he'll stay there. And it all depends, and that presupposes they're going to sell someone, which will be, I suspect, Emerson Royal. But were they to receive a bid for Doherty and not for Royal, then they might decide to cash in there just because they have Spence now added to the squad.
Can I ask then about Troy Parrott? He's gone out on loan once again to Preston this time. What's the feeling within the club about his future prospects? Is next summer going to be the summer that he's going to be in the first team plans, or is this going to just be another step on the way out the exit door at Tottenham?
I think he needs to do well at Preston, but they're still very confident about him. They're both him and Dane Scarlett, who's also gone out on loan. He went to Portsmouth yesterday. They think that the development path is the right one. That they look at what happened with Kane, and he needed 3 or 4 loans out to become the player that was good enough to fight for a place in the squad at Spurs. And it's a similar view with these two, that they are continuing the progress, they're doing well, but they need to be more robust, more physical. They need to grow into men before they can compete with men, which is not an unreasonable feeling, particularly in that position. As a central striker in the Premier League, you do have to have the physical ability to cope with what goes on. And then it's a mentality question. Do you have what it takes to drive yourself and also continually reinvent yourself? Because the best strikers don't stand still. If they stand still, they get swallowed. Kane constantly evolves, does things differently. All of the top players do. They do what they do brilliantly, but they add something every game. So you've got to think again, which allows you to go back to what you're good at initially. Get to have that facility and ability to adapt, change, and drive defenders to distraction.
The squad is still pretty big. It's kind of a mishmash of various managers up to Conte, and now his added impetus of an extra 8 players essentially since he's arrived in. So do you expect many players to, well, it's a multi-pronged question. Will they be able to get rid of the players they want to, I suppose is the best way of phrasing it?
I think they will. They're certainly having discussions already about plenty. The one you've got to get rid of is Ndombele, because he's been a disaster to join the club. My problem with him, if I was buying him, was hang on, he only lasts 60 minutes. Why am I buying this player? I'm playing full whack for someone who plays only 2/3 of a game if he plays at all. But then Lo Celso's got to go. He's never going to make it under Conte. But there appears to be conversations with Italy and Spanish clubs. Likewise, there's a few others. I think we've got, Harry Winks has served his time at Spurs. They might get 20 million from someone for him. He's still a decent player. And he can play for a mid to lower tier Premier League club and look very good, I think. And a few others as well. They've got to get it down to 25. They've got to have a maximum of 8 overseas players under UEFA and Premier League rules. So Brian Hill will go out back on loan. I don't think he'll ever be a Spurs player, but there you go. And a few others. It's going to make...
Just having a bit of trouble with that line there. I think the squad size is about 30 at the moment, so they're pretty close to it. But I had forgotten completely about the nationality requirements and the makeup of those rules, which ultimately is probably going to dictate who survives and who doesn't. Sorry, yeah, we've got you back there now, Martin.
Birmingham, you see, it's the middle of nowhere. Yeah, I was saying, I think they'll lose 5 or 6, mainly the overseas players, because you're only allowed 17. Or 8 rather, overseas players in a 25-man squad. So you can see the obvious places that they were prune. The ones who were left behind didn't go on the South Korea tour by choice rather than by necessity. They've got no chance, have they? I mean, they've been basically told, find a club, because otherwise you're not going to play for anyone.
Yeah, do they care about how much they get for those players at this stage, or is it actually better just not to have annoyed people around the building stinking the joint out?
Well, they'll get rid of them in some form, whether it's giving them away on loan, get deals. They'll try and get money in, and if it comes to the last minute, they may end up paying them off. Because, if they don't play them, don't give them a squad number, then they can claim a free transfer under FIFA rules anyhow, can't they, in January? So you end up getting rid of them that way. But there's no point in leaving bad smells stinking the place out. You're right. You just have to make that hard decision and say, these are no longer part of the club. We'll get you out any way we can.
Is this a new era where actually the investment on the pitch is going to reflect the gleaming stadium of it?
It'll be the first year when it's moving in that direction. As I said, the difference from the past is now they've got a full revenue from the stadium, and they've not just got the match day revenue from the football, which is around 150 million, maybe a bit more a season, 6 million a game. You've also got this summer they've had Guns N' Roses and Lady Gaga. They've got the NFL deal, which is 2 matches this year. They've got various rugby union. I think the New Zealand All Blacks are playing against the Barbars, I think, in November at Tottenham. The income stream is in. That will therefore mean more sponsorship, which will mean more income there. The Premier League income they get will be maybe 150 million. If they have a decent Champions League run, that's 80 million. It's adding up, getting towards £500 million. Even with Spurs running the tightest ship of the Big Six in terms of wages to revenue, 60% of £500 million is 300 million in wages. That's a 45% upturn on where they were last season. You can see the direction of travel. And sadly, the teams with the biggest wage bill tend to be the most successful teams. It's just a fact. because they get the better players.
Can I posit a scenario there when the current manager has a reputation for leaving and for bringing a club to success and then falling out for whatever reason? But actually, if you go back over it, there hasn't really been an opportunity for him to stay somewhere where he had control, he had investment, and he had a situation which was as long and forward thinking as the one Spurs is at the moment. So all of the situations he's been in have been where he's wrestled control from another power in the league through astute signings, force of personality, and then the club hierarchy were like, well, we're selling your best players, or it was Roman Abramovich. In this scenario, is there potentially a world where he actually is there for the long haul and is the manager for a long period of time, getting the investment that he wants, largely having control over transfers?
I think if you were to post that hypothesis about any other manager, you say, yeah, there's a chance he'll stay. And then you think, oh, hang on, it's Conte. He doesn't stay anywhere. He gets itchy feet wherever he goes. He can't stop himself. So if you get 3 years out of him, that's a long stint. Just because it doesn't mean that he can't evolve and change. You know, he is no longer the 45-year-old Antonio Conte. It may be that he wants to put his roots down and stay somewhere. But I suspect that would be in Italy rather than in England, just because he's an Italian and that's where he feels more comfortable. So this is just a job, a lucratively paid one, and one where he wants to be successful because he knows if he can bring trophies to Tottenham, particularly the biggest of trophies, then that would make him one of the greatest managers there's ever been, just because of, well, it's Tottenham, as it were. But he was that, I'm sure, for an even more lucrative pay elsewhere, because that's what he does. And that's not a criticism, it's just the nature of the man is that I don't think he'll ever feel in a place that he doesn't want to leave, just because of what he is. He's always looking for the next opportunity.
In previous iterations, the Spurs job was always a good job, but it's because of the financial scenario that you've outlined there, it's becoming a great job. Like, everything there is set up for success. I don't know what the academy system is like. You know, we definitely heard about the Manchester City academy system being sensational for the last decade, and now it's beginning to bear fruit. All those players who come through on loan for other clubs, they sell for 10 to 15 million, and suddenly they're able to buy the world's best players, paid for by the world's best young players, being sold. I don't know if Spurs are set up in a similar way, but it's definitely one of the best jobs in world football, given, again, the economic situation that you've outlined.
Yeah, it's an increasingly appealing job, and if they can become a consistent Champions League side, even more so, there is the opportunity to certainly supplant Arsenal and potentially supplant Chelsea, because Chelsea, under a non-Abramovich ownership, is going to be a different model. It just is. And and Spurs, they've got nearly 50% more capacity in the ground than Chelsea. Chelsea are going to spend 5 years or so rebuilding piece by piece, so their income levels go down. There's a capital cost of £1 billion plus on that new stadium. There's an opportunity to become the preeminent side in London in the short term. And London is one of the most attractive places for football. We know that. England is, because of the money that's in the Premier League. It is a real chance for Tottenham to become a major player. And it's interesting, the Super League issue 18 months ago, Spurs didn't necessarily want to be part of it, but they were terrified of being left out because they thought that would consign them to the ranks of also ran, so they went with it. And there isn't any question now that they'd be asked if another thing were to come up because of what's happened. Things evolve in football. They sometimes take a while, and sometimes they happen very quickly. And at Tottenham, you think things are happening fairly quickly. It's taken a while, but the question, a long time, and they've been sort of peering through the glass ceiling and not being able to break through it. Well, now you think they're actually cracking it open with a sledgehammer.
Do you have any idea what the starting team is going to look like at the moment?
If I had to pick, it will be Luis, Romero, Dyer, Longley, Doherty if fit, and Perisic if fit as the wing backs. 2 from 3, and I suspect Bentancur and Bissouma, but it may just, the opening game might be Hoberg just because he's been at the club longer. And then he'll start Kane, Son, Kulusevski, but things may alter.
Richarlison's just a good quality sub to have.
Well, he can't play the first game of the season anyhow because he's suspended because of that Everton throwing the pyro back at the crowd. And I think there'll be games when they play two up front, or there'll be games and he'll play left and Son will go right. He'll play lots of football. The four of them will play lots of football, but none of them will start every game. There'll be a constant rotation.
It is pretty exciting. There's just one last little question there. What are Bayern Munich doing talking about Harry Kane? It's like considered very bad form, but was it just a random stupid answer to a silly question, or was it like planting a seed in Harry Kane's mind? Come on, we love you. Come on, Harry, why don't you come and conquer Germany?
I think a bit of everything, really. They needed to make a signal that they weren't devastated by losing Lewandowski, that they were looking for somebody else, that they have the appeal to go out and get another uber striker. And they also recognise that Spurs, if they ever do sell Kane, will not want to sell him to a Premier League rival. And that if he goes to Bayern Munich, he's pretty much guaranteed to win Bundesliga every year and potentially go close in the Champions League. At the same time, there's no way that Spurs are going to sell Harry Kane, and I'm pretty sure that Spurs are doing everything they can, that believing that this season will be the one to persuade him he doesn't need to go anywhere, that he can spend the rest of his career until he goes to the MLS to finish it off at Tottenham, breaking all the records. I mean, you've got to remember that Kane wants to overtake first Jimmy Greaves at Spurs, and he's 18 or so behind, so that happens this season, and then Alan Shearer as the Premier League top scorer. He needs 3 or 4 seasons to do that, to get to 261. And if Spurs won't sell him to a Premier League club, then he's got to do it at Spurs. But he won't want to stay if he's got no chance of winning something. Last summer, it wasn't that he wanted to leave Tottenham as much as he felt he couldn't stay there anymore. That has changed. He now wants to stay. Look at his reactions. Look at the way he's talking. There's no issue of him wanting to go anywhere, is there?
No, it's definitely not. The chatter has definitely died down. Martin, it's good to be excited pre-season. Great to have you with us again. Thanks a million. Cheers.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
It's Martin Lipton there giving us his thoughts. A reminder, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Bobby Dwyer's been in touch to say, love the Spurs double bill here. Agree with John. Third, the minimum expectation, but could push Liverpool. Bissouma and Perisic walk straight into the team and improve it as well as a Conte pre-season. Richarlison adds depth. Arsenal fans comparing him with Jesus isn't comparable. They should be comparing Jesus with Harry Kane, which is unfair on Jesus. And then somebody, Colin McCarthy earlier on, says, give Jesus the armband. Previously led a team of 12 and only one turned their back on him. Hey. The old ones are the best, right?
Oh no, that's an absolute cracker.
Here's what's on OTB Sports Radio today. 1 o'clock, OTB Gold. Jerry Eisenberg talking about Muhammad Ali. Always worth your time. Leaders' questions, Stuart Lancaster at 3. Our retro panel at 4 is when GA meets basketball. OTB Gold is Declan Murphy, his book Centaur, and then the show is live tonight with Nathan in this very seat, talking with John Giles and all the rest that you get on a Thursday evening. I didn't realise that one of the Kerry footballers are heading off to play. The WNBA is the dream.
WNBA is a dream. Yeah, she's going to a Division 1 college and is supposedly just an incredible point guard. I was just chatting to a few people about her the other night, just kind of looking ahead to the weekend, and there is this kind of the sense that, you know, she's part of a coterie of players that want to win now, and like, I mean, for me it definitely feels like this team has kind of come from nowhere and are on the way up. But as Noelle Healy said earlier on, that's not really the truth when you look at maybe some of the players who've been around for so long. But some of those players have been playing better this year, like Louise Murray-Hurtig has looked at her best form in quite some time. So there's a bit of pressure on them this week, even though they're underdogs.
Yeah, but they're enjoying the pressure.
Yeah.
There's a side-by-side of Louise Murray-Hurtig and Gooch catching the ball, turning around and striking it back to the back of the net that is on one of her teammates' Twitters, which I saw this morning. So, like, they're not scared of this at all.
No, absolutely not. And in her, they have someone who can kick like long range points, which kind of offsets beautifully the goal scoring, hard running style of play that they've shown all year. Meath obviously have the exact same thing with Duggan and her range, but they also have the hard running too.
I think the other thing that they have is that they've been standing up for themselves all year. They've been complaining about mistreatment publicly at every available opportunity. Like, that shows leadership. That's the type of thing that bonds a team together, that gives them belief in coming down the stretch in hard games. Is like, well, you have my back here.
Yeah, but like, I mean, it was really interesting, wasn't it? That did those Nima Hurdy comments come out maybe right before the league final, or maybe right after it?
I think it was at the Player of the Month award. She's like, I'm going to tell you all about this stuff. This is what's going on here.
Yeah, it was like everything was going really well for the team, and it was like, actually, you see the duck on the surface of the water, but actually we're winning in spite of what we've been given, as opposed to because of what resources we have at our disposal. I don't think Declan Quill doesn't strike me as a type of manager who would kind of lay down and just accept mediocrity, and I think he's had a big part to play. Himself and Darragh Long have been an excellent management duo. From everything you hear from the players this year, they've given them so much credit, and it's clearly paid dividends. I don't think many people would have seen them getting to an All-Ireland final at the start of the year.
Alright, it's game on Sunday, obviously. After the break, we're going to be joined in the studio by the former Leinster rugby player Darren O'Reilly to talk to us about his nutrition business, Whole Sup. First, here is the football correspondent for AFP, Kieran Canning, talking about the Frankie de Jong situation at Barcelona amid his continual talks with Man United.
This whole de Jong experience has been a very odd one and not a very pleasant one for anybody. What's happened here?
Good question. I think there's still, it remains to be seen what happened. The fact it's taken this long, I think, shows that de Jong, if he had his choice, would want to stay at Barcelona. Barcelona clearly want him gone because he is one of the highest earners. He was sold at that sort of peak time bought just at that peak time just before the pandemic. He's also on one of these contracts that goes up every year, which is part of where the deferred wages comes from. And as I said previously, Barcelona still need to make cuts here and there, getting rid of some players, getting some players off the wage bill to be able to register all these guys that they sign. From a purely sporting point of view, the reason that they've chosen to get rid of de Jong is not because de Jong's a bad player. It obviously hasn't really worked out in the way that he would have wanted when he signed, but it's also the area of the field where Barcelona are already strong with guys that they've brought through their own academy that, obviously are pretty young, pretty cheap in the grand scheme of things in terms of their wages. When you look at people like Gavi and Pedri, and Busquets is still there. So it's an area that basically de Jong was the sort of sacrificial lamb in all this, that we know he's a sellable asset, he's a high earner. If we can get rid of him, that gives us the space, the budget to be able to then go about and recruit in other areas like we've seen with Rafinha and Lewandowski. What happens now in terms of, if de Jong stays, and that's, the latest reports coming out of Spain are along those lines, that he's still pretty insistent that he's going to stay despite the sort of pressures from Barcelona. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do next in terms of how they're going to be able to register these new guys, because if de Jong stays, then the sums just don't add up at the moment in terms of being able to register these new players.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Marginal gains, XG, top speed, recovery. What's it all about? Want to improve but don't know where to start? With more data than ever now available, OTB Sports have teamed up with Whoop to cut through the noise and help you raise your game, no matter the sport. OTB Sports are delivering the metrics that matter. Meaningful metrics in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. See whoop.com for more. Follow OTB Sports social channels for the best insights and stats this season.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Now we're talking about a new Irish startup. Having been a professional athlete for 6 years, Darren O'Reilly was exposed to many of the best nutritionists in the business, but when he left sports to head for corporate life in London, it became apparent he was struggling to meet his essential nutritional needs while balancing a busy lifestyle. The reality of eating healthily can be both time consuming and expensive, which ultimately leads to food choices that are cheap and convenient, as we all know, but not necessarily nutritionally good for you. I'm delighted to say Darren O'Reilly is here with us. And Darren, good morning to you. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks. Thanks so much for having me on this morning, lads.
So you've got a new company, it's called Whole Sup. Before we get to that, tell us about your rugby career, will you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was fortunate enough to be a professional athlete for 6 years, as you rightly pointed out. I kind of played underage rugby for Ireland, got to go to World Cup, which was amazing. That was obviously a childhood dream. Got to play with some great lads who went on to be extremely successful. Unfortunately, I wasn't as successful as them, so the likes of Fergus McFadden, Rob Kearney, Deb Toner, etc. Went to the UK when Conor O'Shea took over Harlequins, played there for a season, and then unfortunately I had to look at getting what I could classify as a real job back then, and moved into the corporate world. So I transitioned into the corporate world, and I had a bit of a shock, if I'm being honest, a culture shock of how difficult it was to eat healthily. It was unbelievably time consuming, but also expensive.
Had a lot of this stuff kind of been looked after for you when you were a professional player?
100%. I'll be honest with you. When we went in, we'd do weights in the morning, there'd be breakfast, there'd be all your nutrition then you do a pitch session, then your lunch would be there. The only kind of meal you were kind of looking after at that stage was your dinner. So everything was at hand.
And somebody would have given you a bit of advice around that?
100%, yeah. So we had nutritionists and dietitians at hand all the time. They tailored all your nutritional needs. So for me at the time, I was a lot bigger. It was always about kind of keeping size on. For other lads, it was about reducing, etc. So it was all like very much so tailored to each position.
So it's like sandwiches on the go, fast food, ordering whatever it was when you become a civilian.
Yes, when you become a civilian, I like the way you put that. So really when I kind of transitioned, as I said, I lost 20 kilos in weight, not deliberately, I promise you. It was just from skipping breakfast, grabbing meal deals on the go, which are cheap, convenient, but nutritionally disastrous. I looked around the office and I realised a lot of my friends and my peers were doing the exact same thing. It was just it was kind of a collision of education, I think, one, but then also convenience. And that's kind of where Wholesup was born. Myself and Dr. Brian Carson have kind of set out to simplify complex nutrition.
Can I ask what do you mean by nutritionally disastrous? Well, Gary, what sort of examples do you have?
Okay, good example is, so when you get a meal deal on the go, sometimes you get a 3 o'clock dip. You kind of get a high sugar spike and then you crash. So the reason why that is one, they're kind of very sugary or carb heavy. They're not kind of balanced. So what you want to be trying to get from a balanced meal is good fats, carbs, high protein, and then any vitamins and minerals that will kind of sustain you, and kind of try to keep that a low GI. So basically what that means is food sources that won't give you a high spike like a Mars bar or something like that, which will be slow, longer, outlasting energy.
So people are like eating chocolate bars and stuff, like you're not talking about a sandwich per se, it's like the junk food on top of that.
Yeah, the junk food on top of that, but then also kind of just grabbing a Tesco meal deal isn't great for you, in all honesty, just because it's quite processed and it's kind of a lot of white carbs, if that makes sense.
So sandwiches aren't the best?
No, in all honesty, if I was suggesting something for people to be eating, we'd be trying to eat more kind of colourful food, so salads, etc.
Okay, and so what part of that problem are you trying to fix with Wholesup?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, we're kind of on a mission to simplify complicated nutrition. So what we're doing there is bringing together all the best superfoods into one easy, wholesome meal. So what that means is each serving of Wholesup is plant-based. There's the reason why we chose that, but it's high in protein, so 31 grams of protein, excuse me. But then it's also packed with your super greens, your superfoods, as well as good fats, and over 30 vitamins and minerals, so that it makes you feel full for longer, but also it makes you feel great for your gut health as well as your kind of focus and energy levels.
So how does it work? What is it?
So basically at the moment it's a powder food, so it's a nutritionally complete powder food. That's our first product. So how you use it is either put in some water or some milk, put in 2 scoops, shake it up, and you can be ready in 30 seconds and you can have it on the go. It suits all lifestyles, from amateur athletes to professional athletes to shift worker, office workers. We've been fortunate enough to fuel a lady called Kate Ger. She's an amateur athlete, but she's an extraordinary person. She's after doing 106 back-to-back marathons and broke the world record whilst holding down a 40-hour week job. So incredible. So getting up at 5 a.m, doing a marathon, going to work, coming back, getting rest, refueling on Wholesup, doing it after work. Like, absolutely amazing person.
That is definitely putting us to shame.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
We spent a good while this morning establishing that Colm outside is a five-side footballer, and he's particularly interested in how this might apply to him. So, because frequently, you know, someone finishes work, gets something on the go, goes to five-a-side and feels a bit bloated for the first 25 minutes, might have a little tactical puke in the corner. And this is hopefully going to prevent or help with stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we got to kind of set the scene and be in all honesty. For amateur athletes, it is super difficult to balance work, family life, relationships, and then social life, as well as trying to get their kind of nutritional profile in place. So yes, Wholesup is definitely a solution for this because it's so convenient and you can have it on the go. And probably the best thing for any athlete is kind of preparation. So how do you prep? Looking at like kind of your workload for the week ahead. So if you're playing five-a-side on a Tuesday and Thursday, or if you have a match on a Saturday, it's how can you prep the whole week ahead? It is really difficult, I'll be honest with you, from being in a professional environment and then moving into the corporate world. I feel the pain of it, and this is one of the reasons why we did bring out Wholesup. But it's an absolutely, definitely a product that can support either recovery or five-side.
I noticed you used the word meal instead of supplement. This is actually, you can use this to replace lunch, or you can use this to replace a meal, as opposed to...
Yeah, absolutely. So you can use it as a meal on the go or as a recovery shake. So a lot of people are kind of prone to only taking protein directly after a workout because they feel that's the right thing to do. Yes, that's definitely a way of supporting recovery, but what's also really important is that you get healthy fats and you also do get carbs. A lot of people are afraid of carbs. Everybody thinks carbs are their enemy when really it's what fuels you. So you kind of need to get that kind of complete profile and balanced nutrition.
What's the startup world like compared to being in a full-time professional rugby environment?
There's a lot of grey hairs here, I'll be honest with you. It's amazing, loads of challenges, but really enjoying it. We launched kind of soft launch at the end of February. We're currently shipping in the UK and Ireland. We've shipped over 10,000 meals throughout the UK and Ireland. Our short-term goal now is to open up Europe, and then after that bring out additional products. Thankfully, our team is growing. As I was saying, my co-founder is Dr. Brian Carson. So he's a senior lecturer then in University College Limerick. He's kind of the brains behind the science, I'll be honest with you. My background was all around digital marketing and bringing clients international and helping them acquire customers. So we kind of have a nice synergy as well. And he's also heavily involved in Gaelic football.
So you've got the Gaelic football and the rugby markets, and obviously the UK is kind of the big, that's the white whale. And how's it going there?
Yeah, it's going really well. So we kind of have a 60% sale rate in the UK. As you said, it kind of is a bit of a white whale just because there's 65 million people there. They generally are a little quicker to adopt new products because they're exposed to a lot more. In Ireland, we're getting lots of support from some great people here in regards to other athletes, but then other people willing to kind of support startups. There's a really good community here that want people to succeed, which is great, from the likes of Enterprise Ireland, etc. They're really helpful.
One last bit there, when you said the product soft launched in March, how long had it been in gestation before that?
So like 2.5 years. So we went through this at the start of COVID, and trying to do kind of new product development during that period is unbelievably difficult because you're not able to go into the factory, you're getting samples sent, you're trying to I never actually thought about this when we were launching the product. Is about kind of the texture in your mouth, how it feels, everything like that. So I'll actually give quite a funny story. When we were doing the kind of new product development, they say your family is your kindest critic. So we kind of sent out a few samples to the family. My mum tasted it, and we were kind of doing blind scoring, and the first score, she was like, this is the very first one, just remember this 2.5 years ago. She gave 0 out of 10. I was like, Jesus, Mum, thanks. But thankfully it's up to a good 9 out of 10 in her opinion, and she's in the later age category, so it was funny at the time.
Tommy Tiernan always says sometimes a wife can be your harshest critic, sometimes your ma can be your harshest critic.
Yeah, clearly at this point.
So listen, if anybody wants any more information, Hulsup on Twitter, is that the best way?
Yeah, or on our Instagram handle, which is Hulsup as well, or hulsup.com as well. You're able to jump on. And meals are as low as €2.09. So really good value. We're looking to be as sustainable as we can. So all our ingredients are sustainably sourced. Our packaging is home compostable. We're on a mission to become a certified B Corp. We'll be one of the first 5 or 6 in Ireland to do that. By the end of the year, we'll be certified B Corp pending, which is pretty huge for a startup.
Okay, well listen, we wish you the very best of luck with this. It's always interesting to see where people go after their full-time professional careers, and it's clear that people are very concerned about where their food is coming from, what they're putting in their bodies, and convenience too. So best of luck with it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on, lads. Thanks so much.
No worries. So WHOLESUPP, you can get that on Twitter and on Instagram as well. Darren, thanks very much. It's 9:29 this morning. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Back tomorrow, Will O'Callaghan and Aisling O'Reilly in studio as we continue our build-up to the All-Ireland Women's Football Final. Plus, we have the return of Deal or No Deal with Phil Egan. Right now, we're going to leave you with the Limerick All-Ireland winner, Mike Casey, who spoke with Joe on last night's show about Limerick's 3 in a row. Enjoy.
Now you're welcome back to the show, so we're going to turn to hurling. Very happy to say that Mike Casey, Limerick defender and a Pearshik defender, All-Ireland winner, is with us on the line. Mike, great to have you on the show. You're very welcome.
Thanks a million, lads. Thanks for having me.
No, it's great to have you. So we were just reaching out to some of your teammates, get some thoughts, get some background info. The most interesting thing we heard was from Shane Dowling.
Oh God, he's a lot of interesting thoughts and on and on fair.
I know. I was thinking, how worried will Mike be when we mention Shane Dowling's been on to us on the QT? I don't know.
Yeah, Joanna, I'm not surprised with him knowing all fairness. Not surprised at all.
It's not too bad. It's not too bad. It's very PG. Don't worry. He said Mike Casey was voted the worst golfer in all of the Pearshik club. He's called King of the Shanks.
Well, I tell you one thing. I golfed with him there Sunday. He shot, what did he shoot? He shot 107 out in Sheahan. And that's not his worst score now by a long shot. He's gone up to the 120s now, I won't lie.
Well, he says you're King of the Shanks, you're the worst of the club. There you go. That was all we said. Is there anything nice you want to say about Mike? He was like, this is the most important piece of information. So congratulations. How have you enjoyed the last week, 10 days?
Yeah, it's been unbelievable. Like we've definitely celebrated it. You know, we weren't able to celebrate kind of the last 2, especially with the people of Limerick. So we've definitely celebrated it, and it's been unbelievable looking at the homecomings. You know, it's kind of quite similar to 18. You know, where there's just thousands and thousands of people looking for your photo, your autograph, just wanting to see you. You know, so that's been a lovely touch this time around. You know.
And you're a teacher, so you're off on holidays at the moment.
Yeah, off on holidays now. The father's a farmer here and a carpenter, so he's keeping me busy when he can get me. So doing a small bit of concrete there today and things like that. So he's keeping me busy.
Right. Okay. Because I was going to ask you, do you just feed up during the summer and walking around Limerick with your All Ireland medal, just taking in the applause? But your dad has you working.
Yeah. I know, to be fair, he's gotten a bit better. In all fairness, he kind of knows to leave me alone kind of a week before a big game. So he knows we have our own routines and things like that. So there's plenty of downtime, which is nice during the summer, you know. I'm
told your parents are die-hard fans.
Yeah, they are. They've been die-hard fans for a long time. In all fairness, they don't miss a match with the club. They've never missed a game, really, to be honest with you. If there was a junior match on in the club below, they'd be the first 2 down at it, in all fairness. And so it didn't really come from any sporting pedigree. Like they just kind of fell in love with it the same way as myself and Peter fell in love with it, like, you know, and they just love watching us play, and they kind of just love being around the social aspect of the club and seeing all the games, you know.
And so, because your brother Pete, obviously All-Ireland winner as well and Limerick player as well, was it really through you and Peter that they got into it, or were they massive hurling fans before you two arrived?
No, definitely through me and Peter. As I said, like they have no sporting background, really, to be honest with you. And once me and Peter started playing it and going up through the systems in Limerick, you know, they really fell in love with it. I suppose Helen had no choice really but to get involved, bringing us out to Rackhill there twice a week when we were 13, 14, 15, you know. But no, she loved it, and the father too, you know. So definitely 2020, you know, was actually a difficult time for them in terms of like they couldn't go to games or anything like that, and they really missed that aspect of it. But since the games have been back, like they've gone to everything, you know, fair stuff.
What an amazingly unexpected journey for them to go on through their kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like they would have never have seen this happening, really, to be honest with you. And geez, they really are so proud of us. Like, and as I said, like they don't miss. They'd go watch us train if they could, to be honest with you. If Paul Connork would allow them watch our train session, or they'd be out there, you know.
And would they be at a point now where they'd have strong opinions of their own on how the game should be played, and like they're quasi-experts at this stage?
They have their opinions, definitely, but they know not to mention them to me and Peter, to be honest with you. Okay. They'll save that for below at the bar in the club there. You know, they definitely won't mention it to me and Peter. They're very good at that at the moment. It's kind of the worst trait we kind of have, really, is after a match, if you've done poorly, if they talk to you, your back is up the wall straight away. Like, so they kind of know to know now, good or bad. So no, they've definitely gotten a lot better at that in all fairness over the years.
Am I right in saying that Sunday just gone was the first All-Ireland final that both you and Pete were on the pitch for the full-time whistle for? Yeah,
it was. That was only mentioned to us afterwards, which was lovely, to be fair. I'd obviously come off in 18 while Peter was on, and I suppose I was away for 2020 and 2021 with the knee. So yeah, that was the first time both of us finished the game together in an All-Ireland final, which was a nice moment, you know.
Are you close?
Yeah, we would be close in all fairness. Like, the way our lives run are quite similar, you know. We have the same sort of interests, you know, in terms of our sporting interests, our golf and all that sort of thing. Like, so yeah, we would be close in all fairness.
Do you find that you've a deeper understanding on the pitch with your brother than other players, or would that be reading too much into things?
I think that's reading too much into it, to be honest with you. Like, we play a completely opposite ends of the field. You know, it's very rare that I give him the ball, if that makes sense, you know, or it's definitely very rare for him to give me the ball. I don't think that has ever happened. But yeah, no, we just enjoy playing together. We haven't had the opportunity in a long time. So it was a nice moment in the Galway game to kind of hear the crowd roar when himself and Keane went warming up. You know, it was a nice moment there to see him come on.
And at club level, would you be further at the pitch? Would you interact more club level?
Not really. Like, I've been tried once or twice out around the middle or at centre back for the club, and it hasn't gone all that well, to be honest with you. So I think even this year, I think full back line will be my spot again this year. So no, he kind of comes a bit further out. He might come out to 11 every now and again. But no, it seems to be full back, full forward for the two of us now for a while, you know.
Define it hasn't gone that well when you've come out the field. I find that hard to believe.
Oh, jeez. I played a game against Bruff, I'd say, in 2018. I'd say I played against Bruff midfield, a championship game. I was absolutely woeful, just shocking stuff, just lost. I didn't know where to go, really, to be honest with you. Played a couple of times. Played a few times and a lot underage at centre back, so I'd be a small bit more comfortable there. But geez, it's a tough position whether you're coming or going, you know. So especially with the Pierce, we've got like Ron Lynch there who's excellent in that position. So I think putting me at full back isn't a bad move. I think it's more.
Fair enough. So the Bruff midfielders were like, that's not my case. He plays for Limerick, surely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
To appreciate what Sunday would have meant to you and to your family, I suppose we have to chart the last couple of years, which were incredibly difficult. So correct me if I'm wrong here. Things are going incredibly well for you and for Limerick, and then mid-pandemic or towards the end of the year 2020, you do your cruciate in a challenge game against Galway. And obviously in 2020, an injury in October rules you out effectively of that COVID championship. So you missed that All-Ireland. And then there's a cartilage problem the following summer, and you miss all of 2021 as well. And so in effect, you're, 18 months out of the game watching your teammates win 2 All-Irelands? That's miserable in anyone's book.
Yeah, no, that hit the nail on the head, really, to be honest with you. Yeah, it was first game back against Galway, played a challenge match, coming back with COVID, did the dreaded ACL, did my time, did my rehab there, came back, played a half for the club in July of 21, and had kind of half tried to get myself. I'd done a good bit with Limerick in terms of like applied skills and things like that. You know, just missing the full game. But that Tuesday night, I was coming in to play the first time in a full session, which was mid-season, and again a big pop in the knee. And to be honest, it was a horrific 24 hours. Like I was fully sure I had done the ACL again, and got scanned at the next morning, and by 5 o'clock I'd gotten good news, but news that I would say just cartilage came away. You know, I had kind of was a completely different injury, and then had tried to stitch that up and everything, and unfortunately then actually on our team holiday in 21 did cartilage again in a swimming pool where the operation didn't go well, so just had to get that removed then when I came back, you know.
So to miss one is very difficult. To miss two on the bounce, it must be horrific.
Yeah, it was difficult. Yeah, it was definitely difficult. Some really dark times, to be honest with you, over those 2 years. But I think
what's a dark time, Mike? So what's a bad day like, or is there a lowest point?
Jeez, yeah, to be honest, my lowest point came, I suppose, we were in Barbados really on the team holiday, and the knee blew up again, and I was sitting in my hotel room in this unbelievable resort, kind of on my notes on my phone, kind of trying to write out a bit of a statement nearly, you know, that I thought like that was the knee gone. It was game over for me, like, you know, that this was all going to finish up in the next couple of weeks, you know, when I got home, right, to get the call to say, look, that knee just won't be right ever again, you know. So like they're pretty dark times, but I actually think the fact that the lads were doing so well, I think actually made it a small bit easier, because you knew that you were missing something really, really important in your life, you know, that you were missing kind of what defines you from kind of the age of 18 to 32 or 3, whenever you decide to retire, you know. And to see the boys do so well really helped kind of motivate you in your rehab to get back to the levels that you want to get back at. And if you can contribute to the group at all, whenever you get back, it was kind of always my end goal, you know.
For some, watching the boys do well would make it tougher again.
Yeah, like for some probably. For me, I think it actually helped me, like, because like coming into training and I was asked to kind of go in and help out with stats and things like that, like that, not to step away from the group or anything like that. And like you really do feed off the boys' energy, you know. Their energy is incredible at training, and it still gave me a purpose, you know. Like I could go away during the summers and I could do my gym sessions and my rehab sessions, my running sessions, things like that throughout the day. With the physios, and then still go to training that night and try and contribute there, and still have the conversations that you would normally have with the likes of Sean Finn, Dan Marcy, Richie English, and with Barry, we'd say, coming back, you know, he was constantly picking my brains to see like how he could improve and trying to contribute as much as I could, even though I wasn't able to be on the field, you know.
Okay, so you still felt part of it. You were still in touch with the lads. It wasn't I'll talk to you when I talk to you and I'll see you in 6 months, lads, kind of a thing.
No, absolutely not, and I think it's the epitome of us. Like, you know, we had Brian O'Grady there this year who did the ACL, and he didn't leave the group, you know, and he still felt part of it, and he's still inside the gym with us doing all his rehab, and we're still having the laugh and the joke with him, and it was the same with Peter and Barry just gone by, you know. Even if you can't be on the field, you can still contribute, and I suppose the boys are excellent at recognising that in terms of like keeping guys around who are good guys, you know.
So once upon a time, cruciate was almost career ending, and it has always been very serious, and I presume remains very serious. In 2022, is your knee as good as ever, or is it ever quite the same again after a cruciate? Yeah, like after a cruciate, I suppose it can get back to where it was, and I actually think with that regard, it definitely is where it was. With terms of having very little cartilage in my knee, there are still some aspects of kind of lateral stuff and warm-ups and things that I would stay away from. You know, kind of, you know, I can get a small bit angry there at times, you know. But I think like for anyone doing the cruciate, like, you know, it's a long slog. Like it's 9 months and it's tough work, but you can definitely return from it if your mindset is right, you know. And you like, even if you just look at like the Sean Finn, you know, like he did his cruciate in, I'd say it was 16,
and like that hasn't held him back in all fairness, you know. So it's you can definitely return from it and get back to where you were, and even, to be honest, even better, because you've got 9 months in the gym where you can work on other aspects of your body, you know, and you can really zone in on aspects that you want to that you might actually get the time to do during a hectic season, you know.
Well, you look, I mean, big in the upper body. I can't quite remember pre-injury were you as big, but you certainly do look like you've done a lot of S&C. And to be fair, that whole Limerick team look fairly big, to be honest, as big as any team I've seen in GAA down the years. Yeah,
like we love the gym, like, you know, we're as competitive in the gym as we are on the field, to be honest with you. You know, like any S&C coming into us, like, you know, we're nearly a dream. Like, you come in and you just set out what needs to be set out, what program needs to be put out, and like lads are just trying to outdo people. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a case of who can bench more, who can squat more, who can deadlift more, and if you're not pulling your weight, you're going to be left behind, you know. And I think that is very visible in the physicality that we bring and the size of the boys that are out in the field, you know.
So, in terms of enjoying it more or appreciating it more, has the time away informed how you feel when you run out of a tunnel now for Limerick, or do you quickly just snap back into where you were pre-injury?
No, definitely appreciate it. Like, you know, like the perspective on everything has completely changed. You know, like the emotion I felt even after that final whistle was so different even to 18. It was nearly a sense of relief in 18. Whereas this time around, like, I just took a minute to actually take everything in and just appreciate the road that I had been on. And I think we're actually getting better at that as a team as well. Like, we sit out in the field for an hour afterwards, like just sitting down, chatting, laughing, just being together, really. And I actually think we love that. Like, we're a group that just love being together, whether it's lads going for a cup of coffee or going out to Rackeel of a Thursday night, you know, in December. Like, you know, we just love being together, which is a nice trait to have as a group, you know.
Do you get to see your parents when you're on the field at all?
Yeah, we do. In all fairness, like they can make themselves visible there. They come down to the rail and fairly lively, and they're full of their hose and chat afterwards. Like, so they're always lovely moments and moments that you'll treasure forever, you know. So yeah, definitely all the families can get down, and shores are there, and they're excellent. They can take photographs and things like that after the final whistle. So they're lovely moments that you look back on when your career's finished that you'll cherish, you know.
Yeah, I can imagine. And even I'd say like half the country, if I hear the Cranberries' Dreams now, I think ye lads. You know, it's like Pavlov's dog.
Yeah, and to be honest, I only watched back the match for the first time, I'd say 2 days ago, and like it kind of seemed a bit subdued afterwards, and then all of a sudden Dreams come on and we just go mad. Like, you know, it has some sort of an emotional connection to us. Like, and even going around, Linger was playing, and if you actually just look back at it, we're all just actually singing. You know, we're just going around with the cup, looking into the stand, applauding the fans, and we're actually just singing the Lord's, like, which is lovely to have, you know.
What were you focused on in advance of Kilkenny?
Ourselves, to be honest with you. Right. Like, and I know that's a cliche, and I know it's probably boring and everything, but ourselves really. You know, we pride ourselves on our performance and how we can get the performance out of each other, and that was what we focused on. Like, you know, there was, looking back on it, there was obviously an awful lot of talk about 2019 and things like that, but you know, we block all of that out. Like, you know, we're a completely different side to 18 and 19 even. Like, you know, we're a lot more mature, and we can handle these situations an awful lot better, and that's to do with John, Paul, Caroline, John. Dave was well versed in all of that. Like, so coming into the All-Ireland final, like, it's just another game, and you have to only look at it as another game, and looking at your targets and how you want to perform, and if we do that, then we will win the game, and you have to try and take the opposition out of it. And yeah, there's definitely things that you're going to work on, you know, traits that they have that you're going to work on that small bit extra coming up to the match. But yeah, other than that, like, we're just focusing in on ourselves, you know.
Interesting, because I would think, for instance, if you're part of the defensive unit, you probably do think more about the opposition perhaps than if you're a forward, where you can't just focus more on yourself. Like, for instance, you would have known in advance of the game there'll be a fair proportion, maybe a higher proportion than usual, of balls pumped long, because, you know, Kilkenny did that and had great joy against Clare. They're probably going to see what we're made of back there. So I presume that crosses your mind. Now, I don't know what you can do to prepare for that as such.
Yeah, no, it definitely crosses our mind. Like, John, like, we have great conversations, and a lot of what we do well is pulling backs together and the full back line, half back line, and having a talk and seeing what is the best way of going about it. And like, for us, it was bringing that ball to the ground, you know, as much as we could, and flooding those breaks. And it was something that we may have actually struggled with at the start of the year, but kind of worked on it bit by bit. And it was an area that we actually dominated, and we knew that if we could bring that ball to the ground, get the half back line in, you know, that was going to be our launch pad, and that was going to win us the game. So yeah, we definitely focused in on that, and Paul would have done a bit extra work on the high ball in that 2 weeks, so that we could get ready for that. So yeah, there is areas that you are going to look at the opposition, like, you know, you'd be foolish not to. So like, yeah, that was definitely looked at and assessed, and to see where we could get most joy out of it, you know.
You mentioned the calmness and the composure and the increased experience. Limerick got off to such a good start in that final and had Kilkenny at arm's length for much of it, and then suddenly, in a very Kilkenny way, they're back suddenly level. Your thoughts at that point? Any part of you thinking, oh my God, here we go again, the ambush?
Yeah, yes and no. Like, you know, there was, like, I was talking to the lads afterwards, like, there was at no stage there where, I don't know whether it's because we've been there and we've done it or anything. Like, it's just the fact, like, we all thought that we still were in control, that we just needed to tidy up one or two things, and give away a sloppy goal in the second half, the second one especially, where, you know, there was, I think it was TJ was just completely unmarked inside there, and that shouldn't have happened, you know. And but like, the next puck out just goes out, and like, I think Road wins it or someone wins it, and, you know, it's just okay. We're back up. We're back one up again, and we just have so much trust in the team and so much trust in every individual, and I think that's shown even in the trust that we have in the whole squad and the guys that are going to come on, you know. And we know that they're going to do us a job, and if it's Dave Reedy one day, it could be Conor Boylan the next, it could be Keane against Galway Peter, you know. Like, we know they're going to come on and do the business for us and see us over the line, and they bailed us out of a lot of situations in the past, and they're going to continue to do it, you know. It's just the trust that the boys place in them.
What's the biggest impact on your game that Paul Kinnerk's had?
I think just he brings everything to it, to be honest with you. Like, I couldn't really pinpoint anything. Like, I think even the courage of actually wanting the ball. You know, a lot of the time, you know, as a full back, you'd be saying, let him have the ball, you know, and they'll be fine. He'll pump it long or do something. But he places so much emphasis on being able to work the ball through the lines, being able to have control of the ball. And you can kind of see that even, like, all of our games in the full back line, you know, we're all extremely comfortable on the ball, and we're all mad to get it and go forward. You know, like, there's a bit of a running joke that, like, me and Sean Finn are the only fellas not to score still, you know, like, and that's a thing where I had one or two chances this year and I raged and I didn't take them, you know. And Sean if Sean gets one before me, I'll be absolutely livid. Like, you know, they encourage that, like, you know, they encourage the go forward ball and be brave, and, you know, just the attacking mindset of going forward. And that's definitely an aspect that we have our team that, you know, is kind of to the forefront of our team, you know.
Okay, interesting. So clearly Kinnerk didn't see you play at midfield against Bruff that time.
That's a definite. Yeah, that is an absolute definite. Yeah, 100%.
Do you sit down with Caroline Curd in a one-on-one capacity, or is it always very much group work?
No, it can be both. It can be one-on-one. It can be a phone call, group work. She kind of does it all, you know. Like, there's no one end of the ear to the other without kind of speaking to her, you know. Whether if it's just touching in on the sideline of training, seeing how you are, how's your school life, how's your work life, all this sort of a thing, you know. She's just excellent in what she does in terms of being able to just be that mammy-like figure nearly to all of us, you know. And if you have any sort of an issue, a problem, anything like that, like, she's excellent, and she's, you know, you can go straight onto the phone and contact her, you know.
So if you're having your teacher, if you're having a difficult time at school for whatever reason, or in your personal life, she is somebody that you can sit down with and tease it out, almost like a session. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, hit the nail on the head. Yeah, like, if you're having problems with, say, in school, or anything like that, yeah, 100%, you ring her up, and,
and she'll give you her honest opinion. She'll say, like, you need to get out of there, or you need to do this, or you need to do that, or anything like that, like, and she's excellent at it, and there's no, it's black and white. She's just unbelievable. She's not going to tell you what you want to hear. She'll tell you what you need to hear, sort of a thing, and she does it in such a professional way, and that if you ring her, no one else in the world is going to know.
I was just going to ask, is she then relaying anything to Kylie?
No, absolutely not. Like, it's, if you ring her, it's a case of like that. Like, no one else in the world is going to know that took place. You know what I mean? And unless you ask her to let someone know, or something like that, like, but no, it's an unbelievable. She's unbelievable what she does, and everyone has that confidence in her.
That is such a great outlet to have, and a great thing to have, because when it's impossible for John Kiley or any manager to come up with the playing side of the approach and tactics and the training and the S&C, and also just to manage 40 lads with an array of concerns or problems or issues. So to put someone like her in place is just a very shrewd move.
Yeah, no, it's vital, like, and it's, like the mental side of it, and the mental health side of everything. Like, everyone has those problems. Like, there's no squad of players, intercounty players, where people don't have those problems. So it's been able to deal with those. And once you have happy players, they're going to play well, and they're going to want to play well for you. If you have a lot of upset players and with loads of things going on, like, at the end of the day, it's an amateur sport, and everyone has careers, and everyone's going to want to progress. And having that person there to help with all those situations is obviously vital to what we do, and vital to any kind of major sporting organisation, like,
We had Eddie Brennan and Michael Fennelly on the show the other evening. They were just talking about Cody, and they were, saying you could, at certain times, especially if you're in the team, you could go months without hearing from Cody, and that was just his way, and it was that kind of distant approach to management, and they were saying nothing wrong with it, nothing right with it, but that was Cody's way. What's Kylie's way? Would you talk to John Kiley often, or would it be a bit more distant, or what are your interactions like with him?
Yeah, he would definitely be a bit more distant. If you're having a conversation with him, it mightn't be for the right reasons. I'd say kind of like Brian Cody, to be honest with you. But when he does speak to you, and you listen, like, and it's a case of, like, he will pull you out on stuff, or he will put the arm around you. It's but it's definitely a case of, like, get down to business yourself, and if you need to be kind of put back in place, he'll do that. But distant wouldn't be the word I'd use, but he definitely. He won't be speaking to you every week. Sort of way. He's not going to be ringing 80-90% of the players every week. He probably has one or two players that he'll speak to, but after that, he's not going to be ringing everybody. No, definitely not.
I guess it's not possible for any one person to do that, and he talks to you as a group plenty, I'm sure.
Exactly, like, and also, like, you have to, when you're in a situation like that, like, you have to take the person out of it. If you have a hard call to make, it's quite difficult if you're really personal with a couple of members on the team, like, and things like that. So to have that small bit of distance is always good, and to be able to make that call when you need to, and that kind of helps with that.
Mike, how do you feel about the new schedule, the new calendar, that you're done now for the year and you're into club?
Yeah, like, look, it's definitely been a big debate. Like, we went back with a club challenge match there on Saturday. Played 20 minutes of that. Now, it wasn't my finals tournament, but played 20 minutes there. And but look, it's the club players. They now have their time in the summer too, where it's not just slogging in October, November, December. Like, and it's excellent. Like, I love going back to the club. Like, I've had one of my best days with the club, and winning a club All Ireland, like, and like, best friends are there and everything like that, like, so going back there is never it's never a downer for me. Like, we love going back, and we love competing and looking for more county titles.
It seems like there's still lots of hunger and desire and ambition in this Limerick side, and because you don't seem like a team who are digging it out, and it's a real struggle, and it's a grind. You seem like a team who enjoy that thrill of competition and enjoy the winning, but it's not like tanks are being emptied and you're dwindling resources. It just feels like it's can't wait to go again and see what happens kind of a vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and the thing is, like, we're still a youngish side, like, do you know,
What are you, 20? You're 26?
26, yes, 26, yeah, I'm 26, and, you know, like, there's loads there, 25, 24, a couple of 27s and 8s, like, you know, and, like, Nicky and Graham are two older fellas, like, but, you know, there's no one in the dressing room saying, like, you know, geez, I'll hang up the boots, or, the sort of thing, like, we are just so mad to go back and compete again and again and again, you know, and that's just our competitive side coming out of us, like, you know. We're still so mad to hurl, and, like, we are genuinely, like, it's a cliche, but we are the best of friends in there, you know, and we'll nearly miss the next couple of months where you're gone away at your club, and you won't get back training till December or January, whenever Glasgow is back, like, so we'll nearly miss that, like, because back we've had over the years, the memories we've made are all with that group, like, you know, and that group that won in 18, there's still a large portion of us there that have really become good friends, you know.
You're a teacher. I always wonder when it's an intercounty player who's a teacher, did you do it for the love of teaching or for the love of the summers?
I did it, I'd say, just for the CEO points, to be honest with you, is what I know, look, it's something I always kind of wanted to be a teacher, and yeah, the summers off were nice, and gee, this year with the thing brought forward, like, so we played, I think it was 2 or 3 rounds, or it was actually up until the Munster final. The Munster final, actually, we broke for our summer holidays the Friday before the Munster final, and, like, I have huge sympathy for the lads who have to go into work on the Monday morning. You know, like, we had to go in after some really tough affairs and go back into school on the Monday morning, which was for the first time ever, you know. Yeah. And that was actually tough. So the lads working 9 to 5s, having to go in on that Monday, you know, it is really difficult. So it definitely does help throughout the year as the championship went on this year. Instead of going into school, you know, after Munster final, you were able to get up, and the bodies were really, really sore, and a couple of us actually went to the Strand before going out.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
The OTB